wait, what's the draft order? Oh, never mind. It's fine.
Hey, welcome back to the First Something Podcast. My name is Ryan Martin, aka the winner of the Traders One Day Game, here in which we will be podcasting a Survivor Winners Draft. We'll be making the tribe comprised of Survivor winners. We're in this awards a few years back. We're going to be drafting our versions of Winners Award Tribe. Joining me, as always, is the reigning winner of the Survivor Drafts on the Sword and Smoking Podcast. We got Miss Ava Bella. Ava, how are you? And she is frozen, it looks like.
Oh, what? After all that talk, she's the one frozen.
Ava was making fun of Michael Wright for being frozen, so let me introduce him next. We got the winner of life, winners of being right. We got Mr. Michael Wright. What's going on, Michael Wright?
I'm good. I'm also frozen, it seems. How's the stream, bro? Am I frozen? This is bad, bro.
They're both frozen. They're both frozen.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Am I good?
Oh my God.
You're good.
It's because I'm not on MSU's campus. I have my own better Wi-Fi.
Okay, wait. Yeah.
I don't have to use the guest Wi-Fi.
It looks like Ava has. There we go.
I'm back.
Ava is back. I'll let her introduce herself right now. Ava, how's it going?
I have no idea. No, Michael's gone.
What is going on here?
We're having some technology problems. I don't know what I missed when I froze and everybody disappeared. And I had to switch to my phone hotspot. But yes, I am officially back in East Lansing, back at MSU, ready for the semester to start tomorrow. I'm very tired, but we're here. The semester's starting.
This person might not have won the draft last week, but he's a winner of life, winner in Leah fans' heart, winner of being funny, winner of being a great guy. Got Mr. Jacob Yesman. What's going on, Jacob?
Wow, Ryan, thank you. That really warms my heart. That was really, really nice. It's going good. As long as I'm not frozen, I'll be all right.
There we go. And joining us this week also, the king of being frozen, Mr. Michael Wright. What's going on, Michael?
Chilling. Get it? Because I'm frozen. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
So we'll be podcasting the draft again this week, this time comprising of a tribe of only Survivor winners. 45 players have won Survivor in its 47 seasons in the U.S. We'll be drafting those 45 players. No Australian Survivor, no MSU Survivor, no College Survivor, no Survivor New Zealand, no Survivor UK. Just U.S. Survivor. They had to have one in CBS Survivor.
I draft Torin.
Yeah, I can't draft myself.
So like I mentioned earlier, Ava was fortunate to win last week of the Survivor Second Chance 2 draft. I think I was robbed. I came in second, just saying.
I think it was big.
In the draft order. So Ava, what do you want it to be? It's going to be a steak draft just like last week. You claimed you knew who you wanted to have for your first pick, so.
I do. My strategy of picking just my favorite people worked last time, so I'm gonna go with that again. For my strategy, I will be making the first pick. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It worked for me last time. So I'll do me, and then I'll let our guest Michael go second. And then Jacob, and I'll put Ryan last since he was my closest competition in the last draft.
I wanted the fourth pick, so I'm more than happy for this.
Okay.
I'll take third. I wanted the third pick. You fell right into my trap.
Well, I wanted the first pick, so here we are.
So just for a little clarification, unlike last week, there's no balance in gender. You can pick as many guys, many girls, many non-binary people as you want. It just has to be 10 people. Before we start the draft, Ava, what is your strategy for this draft? Like, what are you looking for?
The same as it always is. I pick the people that I like the best, and it doesn't work out for me. I think my strategy for this one is I want as many of the dominant women as I can get, so I'm gonna start there. And I want, if possible, my entire team to be women, but that might not be possible. So I do have some men that I also do enjoy as winners, but I'm literally just picking the people that like I enjoyed watching, which is what worked when I won last time. So I feel like, why not?
Here, Jacob, what's your strategy for this draft?
I'm going to steal all the girls and all the gays right from Ava. I'm going to steal them. That's it. No, actually, though, other than that, like, it's probably similar of just, like, picking people who I enjoyed watching, because we can sit here and debate all day long which players played better, and that does play a factor into who I like watching. If there's a winner who played really, really well and was a great dominant force, then I liked watching them more. So their gameplay correlates with how much fun they were to watch, in my opinion. So it'll be a mixture of both for me.
Yeah, for sure. Michael Wright, what about you? Like, what's your strategy going into your first draft?
Yeah, my strategy is also to pick the women, surprisingly enough. The reason why is I feel like, I feel like if Ava is going to be picking before me, I can weaken her picking decisions like later on. I like literally that's it. Also, I'm not gonna always pick the players that I think are actually underrated, because if I'm in the minority and that's not a popular opinion, I'm not
Right.
going to get any votes. So I'm not even really picking people that I think are that good, but obviously I'm not picking people that I think are bad. I'm picking people that I think I can convince into having people vote for me. So
Strategy. I'm gonna be honest. My strategy is to go with the flow. I did not. Last time I prepared too much. This time I did not prepare at all. I watched every season. I know my stuff. So let's see if that pans out for me. But Ava, you're officially on the clock. We'll be drafting with the first pick overall in this draft.
Okay, I've been thinking about this since I was told that I would get to decide the draft order because I won the last one. And so I'm gonna pick my personal favorite Survivor winner and probably one of the most popular, and that's Parvati. That's probably
Wow, I am so
not-
excited.
I know.
Yeah.
Like that's not really a hot take. I feel like most Survivor fans don't argue the fact that she's an incredible player. She's incredibly dominant in fans' favorites. She was incredibly dominant in Heroes Villains, even though she came just short of that win. So I feel like even throughout all of her seasons with that and the Cooks and Winners at War, I mean, there was a lot of factors with that. I feel like that's a different season when looking at like people's overall gameplay if they played multiple seasons. But I feel like across the board, she's had very dominant gameplay, been able to have a lot of agency with what she's doing. And yeah, I mean, I'll always be a Parvati stan. So that's my first draft pick.
Also, the star of Deal No Deal Island season 2. Her and David Jennett from Australian Survivor were working with each other last week.
No spoilers, please.
Real and true.
Michael Wright, what are your thoughts about Parvati being the first pick?
So ideally, I want to trash every pick that you guys have so that people think your picks suck. But I can't deny these first couple of picks are going to be good. I do think Parvati, other than Winners at War, which I kind of give a pass for, she's been dominant in every season, or at least she's had great longevity in every season. She's been really dominant in 2 of those. And I think even if she's only won once and has played so many times, I feel like if you're consistently, good socially, good strategically, good at challenges, I think Parvati's a great pick.
For sure. One of the few survivors with a nickname, the Black Widow. Jacob, what about you? What do you think about Parvati being the first pick?
Parvati was second on my board. Wanted Parvati real bad. Parvati probably would have picked first, so I could steal her from Ava if I had the chance. So I think Parvati is a great pick. Like Michael Wright, can't really trash on her game too much. I think what makes Parvati extremely impressive is just how much of a threat level she had going into Heroes vs. Villains and how dominant she still was in that season. And so, yeah, Parvati was every boy's childhood crush. She was dominant player. And how can you trash on Parvati Shally? You just can't.
Yeah. I will say, I think Parvati's one of the most influential Survivor players of all time. You might argue if someone's a game changer or not. I think we can all agree Parvati is an actual game changer. Pretty much every season after Parvati played, people were like, this girl's Parvati. Let's vote her out first.
Mm-hmm.
Very few players have been able to do that. She was number 2 on my board. I think she's the best female player of all time. So, yeah, great pick. But, yep. Michael Wright, you have the privilege of picking second. Who'll be drafting with your first overall pick?
This is an absolute freebie that I knew would land in my lap once Ava was picking first and I was picking second. I hope people, I won't spoil anything, but hopefully recency bias doesn't taint this person's image, but I'm going to be picking Tony.
Wow. No spoilers for any other show on this podcast. Yeah. Why did you want to pick Tony with your first pick?
Well, I feel like when Tony first won, maybe I'm like wrong. I don't even think people felt like Tony was considered like this amazing winner, but they viewed him as this really impressive and engaging winner. And I do think that him being a 2-time winner does make him stand out above the rest. And obviously there's another 2-time winner. But the reason why I picked Tony, even though he might not have done super well the second time he played, is I think his 2 individual wins are like super highly regarded. If he was 2 separate entities, he'd be a top 10 player or a top 5 player, maybe even like twice, basically. And you can't really say that so much for Sandra, where I do think Sandra's a really good player. But if we're just strictly focusing on their wins, I don't think people view Sandra as highly as Tony. So, yeah, winning twice and besting people like Sandra, like Parvati, like other winners that I won't name because that'll reveal who I'm going to pick next. I feel like I don't see how you can't pick Tony. So yeah, Tony's the obvious choice.
For sure. Jacob, you're going to pick Tony with your next pick?
Yeah, I absolutely would have picked Tony. No, yeah, I would have. He's a good player. He's a good winner. Tony, compared to Sandra's 2 wins, which obviously is extremely impressive as well. Tony's 2 wins were just so like one out of a million. Like, I don't think we'll ever see another winner who plays the game like Tony again, especially with the new era. But even with the old era, I don't think there was another player like Tony who could have replicated a win like that. The closest person was Russell, and he couldn't even come close to a win when he was sitting at Final Tribal. So Tony is, probably my personal favorite Survivor player of all time, just because of his combination of how amazing he was as a player and how entertaining he was. So yeah, Tony was great. Great pick.
Sure. I love Team TV. I think he is one of the most influential players as well as Parvati. I think he changed the game. Kageyana, I think, is probably the best overall season of Survivor. That might be a hot take. It's my favorite season. I think he was able to dominate that cast so well. Convincing Woodaseeking to the end is still one of the most shocking moments in Survivor history, in my opinion. For him to do it that flawlessly is incredible. And coming to game in Winners War with this big of a target, he went the entire season, not a single vote cast against him at all. Won 4 challenges, just one shy of the record of 5 from the real for men. He's an amazing player, one of the best of all time. Ava, it's a man. How do you feel?
I am not a huge Tony fan, like as just like somebody I would want to play with or like would want to like be with, I guess, like as a human. Like there's no denying that like he is an incredible player. Like you can't take that away from him. He annoys me greatly when I watch him on TV, to be honest. But I do feel like you can't deny that he's a dominant Survivor player. Like there's no way you look at it and don't think Tony's a great Survivor player. So I wouldn't have picked him because again, my team is just people I like. But I do think that's a good pick.
I would say in defense of him, like when I was a kid and I watched like Kageyana the first time, I also kind of didn't like him, and he grew on me. I think my tastes in players that I like to watch have changed. But honestly, like watching the Traders, he seems like a normal guy, and I feel like
He does on the
like
Traders.
it's just like all his annoying antics. That's like behind the scenes. Like he's not actually being annoying when he's. I think that's how he gets the votes.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob mentioned Russell. Russell's annoying behind the scenes and to your face.
I can't stand
Tony, yeah, he says people talk like llamas and shit like that, but like he knows how to downplay it, and I do respect that. I think that's a skill. If you're crazy and you're a psycho and you're able to downplay that, that's really hard to do. And I think that's like a really underrated skill of Tony's. So
can anyone here speak llama on the podcast?
No, I cannot try that right now. Go ahead, Ryan. That's all you.
Tony, whether he's speaking llama or making people climb ladders, playing idols, influential Survivor player, one of my personal favorites. Yeah, we're on to the third pick now. Jacob, who are you going to pick?
I've been going back and forth for a while. Part of my decision making plays into what you're going to pick, Ryan. No, you don't. No, you don't. No.
I'm going to write it down right
now. The person I'm about to pick is somebody who I think that you would not pick, but I have to take them. I have to pick the other 2-time winner. I'm picking Sandra as my third pick.
I was actually going to pick Sandra with my second pick, so.
Oh, nice. I thought that you would pass on Sandra because I know you're not a fan of Sandra.
It's not that I'm not a fan of Sandra. I just think she's a little bit overrated as a player. I think she's one of the most iconic Survivor players of all time. I'm not going to take away the fact that she won twice. I think that is very hard to do and give her a lot of credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's a legend of Survivor. That being said, I don't think either of her winning games were that impressive. I think in Pearl Islands, I think Fairplay was the star of that season. I think Sandra deserved to win over Lil. I think she had some impressive moments, but I think Fairplay was the star of Pearl Islands. When it comes to Heroes vs. Villains, I kind of think she got a little bit lucky in the sense of she was on the bottom of the Villains Alliance, tried getting the Heroes to work with her to get up Russell, failed in doing so, and by failing, she ended up winning the game. So I think she's a little bit not.
Hey, listen. Before we get too deep into the hate on Sandra here, let's just let me get some stuff off of my
Yeah,
chest.
go ahead.
All
What's
right?
your defensive
no
candidate?
denying that- There's no denying that Sandra is an icon. I do agree that there's probably some other winners who are a better overall player than Sandra. But the fact of the matter is Sandra did win twice and is the only winner to win twice with her first 2 seasons and not having to lose in between that. Now, of course, Sandra came back 2 more times and didn't play well after that. But who is going to have a bigger threat than a 2-time winner? It's like if Tony came back for another season after Winners at War. The person with the 2-time win is always going to be the biggest threat. And honestly, some of her most impressive gameplay was in those early stages of Game Changers when she had that 2-time winner threat on her back and was still able to make moves and have some agency in the beginning before getting swap screwed a little bit. But other than that, she did win 2 times. And yes, she wasn't like this dominant strategic force on either of those winning seasons, but she did know how to play to the jury socially and get to the end with somebody who she could be. Yeah, she had Johnny Fairplay ahead of her, but she also knew that most likely Johnny Fairplay might be voted out, or she was banking on the fact that Fairplay might not get the votes at the end, which might not have worked out for her, but it did work out for her both seasons. And the goal of Survivor is to win the game. And she won the game 2 times, something that only one other person in this entire world can say.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't
Michael, right, go ahead. What are your thoughts on Sandra?
say in defense of Sandra, like, yeah, I don't think her heroes versus villains game is like as impressive in terms of the game she played. It's really only impressive because she's a former winner and somehow didn't get voted out. But like, yeah, she succeeded because she failed to take out Russell. But like Russell and Parvati, who are hyped up as these great players, didn't have the strategic foresight to be like, these heroes who don't like villainous styles of gameplay are probably not going to sympathize with us. So you could say Sandra got lucky, but like Parvati and Russell fumbled. Like they should have known that. And
I think Parvati knew, but I think Russell was too cocky.
Well, yeah.
That's always his problem. Let's be real.
Ava, what are your thoughts on Sandra?
I love Sandra. I do agree that like in comparison to Tony, the other 2-time winner, like Tony's gameplay is like superior in terms of how he played. I think Sandra is just obviously one of the most iconic, one of the most well-known Survivor players. And I do think like she won twice. She deserved both times she won. Like, I don't think there's any arguing that she's also not an incredible player.
For sure. I've said about my piece, I think she's an iconic player. I think she's a legend. Fantastic TV, one of my favorite people to watch. I just have more confidence in some other Survivor players than Sandra. I'll just put it like that. But yeah, I think the fans are going to love your pick, Jacob. So you got that to do. I'm up next.
Let's see it.
I have next 2 picks. I have a strategy in mind. I'm going to pick the 2 most dominating players in Survivor history. First up, my favorite Survivor player of all time, Boston Rob Mariano. Welcome to Team Ryan. Yeah, this is not a question for me. First season of Survivor I ever watched was actually Survivor All-Stars. Well, season most person watched. Rob is why I'm here today. Rob is why I played MSU Survivor. Rob is why I know all of you. Seeing Boston Rob play the game like he did in All-Stars was so impressive. I think he should have won over Amber. I really do. That whole season is so much of a asterisk almost in my opinion because you had the pre-existing relationships thing. It was so personal. The whole Lex scenario was insane the more you think about it. Like it never happened in modern day at all. It was just insane. And the fact he only lost by 1 vote is insane because he just needed Chien's vote. And had he got Chien's vote, he would have won. He returns in Heroes vs. Villains, in which he's dominating his tribe instead of having the biggest target on his back. And it's not until a person who's going to direct him a little bit, fumbling the bag for why he ends up getting voted out. Love you, Tyson. Hidden Returns to Redemption Island has probably the most dominant game of all time. He faced little to no adversity that entire time. It was insane. You saw Russell just struggle so much. He was taking control of the tribe immediately. He was so impressive. I think he kind of wrote up the rule books and how to play a dominant game start to finish. He's a mafia boss. He's a godfather. I love him. I think he is so talented at Survivor and has a great mind for the game. Yeah, Boston Rob, fantastic owner, fantastic player. Welcome to my team.
I mean, yeah, there's no arguing that also. Like, I feel like, though, like, Rob, I feel like did have some seasons where he did kind of flop. Not, like, totally. Like, I don't think everything where he had issues was entirely his fault or, like, in his control of, like, people's perceptions of him. Like, if you come in with that big of a target, like, there are things you can do, but there's only so much you can do if people are hell-bent on getting you out no matter what you're doing just because of who you are. So I don't think some of his like more flop performance seasons like are entirely his fault. I don't think he's the most dominant player to ever play. I think his winning season he was very dominant, but I think in other seasons and in All Stars he was very dominant. But I think in other seasons, like he was a good player. I don't think he was the best player. But I think overall, obviously, he is a very dominant Survivor player.
I want to point out he called Coach a little man. Then Coach immediately was sobbing of the fact that Boston Rob got voted out and how pissed he was. So he has that effect on people.
So
Just
silly.
saying.
What's your next pick, Ryan?
Michael, right, you're making some faces.
Oh no, I wasn't sure if I was talking or if you're making the next pick. So I was like just
Why don't you talk? Hear more about talk if you'd like.
Okay. I guess my thoughts on Rob is I have a really weird impression of him because I think if you strictly look at his win, it's one of like the best winning games in my opinion, but it's also like people will discredit him and say, well, he played with a bunch of idiots. But it's also like, yes, I do agree and I would knock it down for that, but it's also like, well, he should also be a massive threat because he's Boston Rob. And the fact that he won, like I feel like you put any other winner in that situation, they probably don't make it, or like any good player, you put Sari there, I don't think she makes it to the end. So I don't really know. I guess these people have to be like really stupid, but I'm also like, yeah, I do appreciate people that can win on their first try or their second attempt and they learn from their mistakes. And it's like, seems like Rob had a lot of learning to do, and most people don't get the luxury of playing as many times as Rob does. And you could make an argument that most good players, if they get the opportunity to win or play as many times as Rob, they would win. So I get where people are like so high and low on him, I guess, because I do think his win is one of the best, but like he does lack some longevity in his other games outside of his win.
I will say, I think you can say All Stars is almost a win for him. He ends up getting a car, getting married,
Parkers!
getting 4 children. Like,
I mean, is that the goal of Survivor? To get married or get a car?
Get a car.
honestly,
I mean, it's pretty cool. I'd be happy, but that's not like my
I
goal.
think he hacked the system. I think he knew he was going to come back and win the game and become a legend. He went on the Amazing Race twice, went on the Traders, went on Deal Loader Islands. He is the face of Survivor. Yeah,
He still got overtaken on Cameo by Q.
exactly.
So is he that good? I don't
Yeah,
know.
also, I have a question. Like, Ryan, do you take into account Boston Rob's like performance on Winners at War?
I will say, I think Winners at War is kind of a nominee. Well, is that the right word?
Anomaly.
Anomaly. Just because he's come. I also same thing with Sandra, even though I think Sandra is a reason why she got voted out. Rob, not as much. Rob had literally like 2 months prior was on that exact same island with a statue of him, literally, and the entire cast knew about that.
I just feel like that's like so like inconsequential. Like, who cares?
If
Like,
you're a player and you're playing with someone who has a statue of them, and Survivor itself is calling him like an idol of the game, you don't think it's going to affect his game?
I mean, I will say
They're
at that.
both playing with his wife. Like, come on.
Yeah, I guess I would just say I feel like Boston Rob plays with idiots, he wins. Boston Rob plays with winners, doesn't play very well.
Loses.
I would agree. I would agree. I think Boston Rob is a great player whose longevity and winning potential depends on the cast around him.
It's
I
true.
will say, I'm just pointing this out there. In Heroes vs. Villains, he was controlling his tribe until Tyson blew up on himself. Like, if Tyson doesn't make that dumb move, we're looking in a world in which Rob is controlling the villain's tribe alongside having heroes who would want to work with him. Rupert and JT and Colby also have all said pregame and postgame how they were hoping to work with Boston Rob come the merge. Most of the cast knew that. He was in a dominant alliance in Heroes vs. Villains until Tyson made arguably one of the dumbest moves in Survivor history.
I think Rob's a great player. I think that Rob, he's like a dominant player, absolutely deserves to be picked here, but I don't think he's as adaptable as the first 3 players in that have been picked in terms of like adapting his game, because as we saw in Winners of War, it's like he played the exact same style as he did his first 3 seasons.
I'll give you that, but I will say if you watch Deal or No Deal Island Season 1, your opinion might change.
It's a Survivor.
We've
podcast.
got a lot of idiot talk. So there's no season full of more idiots in Survivor 1 world. Kim Spradlin, welcome to Team Ryan. Yeah, I think Kim played one of the most dominant games in the history of Survivor. There are a few other people I kind of want to pick. I think Michael Retzkin is still a certain person. but I think Kim is arguably the most dominant winner in Survivor history. I think so many people criticize, oh, One World's cast sucks. I also think Kim is the reason why. I think she's just that good. She controlled the game from start to finish. I think she just came in, knew exactly what she was doing, and played almost perfection. But to perfection, I think she was flawless. I don't think the cast is as bad as people say it is. Also, I think Chelsea's a pretty good player. Sweetie's a pretty good player. She was great social, she was great strategically. She was great physically. Tied the record for most wins by female in Survivor history. I also think her wins at War Games is actually not that bad. She played for the bottom most of the game, but she was able to escape having her name getting written down for a good part of it. Didn't get voted out. Even at the final 10, she was in a alliance of 5 people running that show, and the other alliance was able to get the most of her, but they also had some advantages and some idols. It was kind of like a screwed situation. She ended up placing, I believe, because of the whole extinction thing. So I think she played a really underrated game in Warriors of War. I think she's one of the greatest Survivor players of all time. I'd love to see her in Traders also. Yeah, Kim Spradlin, dominant female player, dominant winner. Gladly choosing her in my first pick in the second rounds.
Yeah, she would have been my next choice. So I concur. I agree with that pick.
Yeah, if I had the 4th pick, I would have taken Kim specifically because I knew it'd be Ava.
I knew Ava was going to draft her.
Why? What's with the Ava hate? Come on.
You ultimately said you're going to draft only strong women, and I'm just like,
Well, Ava, you're the only person who's like, we know fully is what your strategy is. That's why we can try to defend.
Also, this might be a hot take. Like, I prefer Parvati's wins, and like I like Parvati as a character, and I think Parvati would probably do well on more seasons of Survivor. I low-key do think that Kim's win low-key might be better than Parvati's. It's like on par. And honestly, I feel like Kim, like I think Parvati, the reason why she is like beloved is because like she made a women's alliance, which literally never works or happens anymore. But like Kim technically was, I know she's on record as saying she wouldn't want to work with women, but if for whatever reason that confessional of her being like, oh, I guess I'll work with women, I think Kim would be like the face of like Survivor female players over Parvati. It's just that Kim's not a girl's girl like Parvati, but I do think that Kim, you could argue, played a better game. It's just that, yeah, she played with pretty stupid people, but also like I think a lot of people, when they're on a fans versus favorite season, they just talk about how the fans are always stupid or whatever. Parvati was on a fans versus favorite season, and it's like she doesn't get the backlash for that, you know? So I don't know. I'm like a lot of these winners that we have won because they either played with stupid people or they're just that good and they make the competition look stupid. So
I do think part of it is fans versus favorites considered to be one of the best seasons of Survivor, and I think One World is considered to be one of the worst. I think that's definitely why, but I do think, I think Kim had a more impressive win. Parvati has had more impressive games and has been a more impressive character. Though I do think they're pretty on par with one another. Jacob, what do you think about the Kim Spradlin pick?
I think Kim's one of the best Survivor players of all time. Great pick. I think that what made her One World game so impressive was even with how dominant of a player she was, it seemed as though every single person left in the game by like final 7 still wanted to take it to the end. Like it almost seemed like there was almost no scenarios where Kim was ever going to be voted out. And I don't know. I know I saw recently where some people said that she needed a couple immunities at the end in order to make the end, but I'm not quite sure if that's true. But in terms of her and Parvati has legacy on her side. I also think Parvati has like this slightly more engaging personality. And so that's why Parvati is more respected or more like well-liked within the community. And also, yeah, in terms of legacy, Parvati just played against Ozzy and Suri and Amanda, like Survivor legends, where Kim, although in Winners at War, like, you know, didn't play as well like when she did in Win Her Season. I don't think that you call like Tarzan, Troyzan, and Kat the same legends. So that's why Kim is out of respect. But I agree with Michael Wright that in terms of their gameplay, like Kim's probably right on par with Parvati.
For sure. Well, Kim has been taken off the board. Jacob, you're up next. Who are you going to be drafting?
I'm back and forth. I think those were the first 5 picks that should have been picked, and now I'm like really struggling. I feel like I'm like between like 5 or 6 people right here. I'm gonna choose my probably personal favorite, somebody who I think Michael Wright might pick. I'm picking Jeremy Collins. I'm picking my boy Jeremy here.
I was between him and Cam. That's a fantastic pick.
I love Jeremy. Yeah.
Jacob, why Jeremy Collins?
First of all, it's hard not to like Jeremy. He's just a very likable, charismatic guy. Second of all, he's had 3 outings on Survivor. All 3, in my opinion, extremely, extremely impressive. First, he comes out in San Juan del Sur, and he is voted out early merge for being that big threat, but he was a big force up until that point. And then the second time, playing in Second Chances, he's playing against one of the best casts, easily, we've seen in Survivor, and completely adapts his game to dominate that season. Winning the Final Immunity Challenge, he finds how many idols? 2 or 3, at least 2. Plays them to perfection, develops the meat shield strategy, is able to really just control the game both from like the top and the middle, and is able to clean sweep the vote, sitting next to 2 people who are he's sitting next to Spencer. I know Spencer wasn't very well liked in Cambodia, but Spencer is one of the most well-known players up until that point going into Second Chances, and Jeremy just absolutely dominates the entire cast. And then he comes back on Winners at War and has to play from the bottom, a totally new position that Jeremy has to play from, and still is able to survive several votes while being on the bottom. To me, it's hard to be more well-rounded than Jeremy, more likable than Jeremy. Jeremy's just a great winner, overall great player.
Sure, Michael, you had quite the reaction when Jacob made his pick.
Yeah, I just feel like he's not that good.
You'll fuck out of here.
That's it, really. Next. Yeah, no, Jeremy's probably like my favorite winner. I think Cambodia is one of my favorite seasons, and it was a fan selected cast. But if you think about it, a lot of these people prior to being picked, they weren't even known as these really great players. And it was still a great season, and I feel Jeremy dominated the season. Again, he swept. Not a lot of winners can say that. I picked Tony, and he got close to sweeping. I think Rob's gone close to sweeping, but Jeremy actually got the job done and got 10 votes. I think I don't know, Jeremy's one of my favorite players. I will say I couldn't not pick someone like Parvati, Tony, Rob, or Sandra, who's at least made it to the end twice, right? But Jeremy's made it to the merge every single time. And even you can argue that his game in Winners at War wasn't good. In regards to playing from the bottom, it was good. At that, for being at the bottom, he was playing decent. So I feel Jeremy has shown to be more consistent than Tony, more consistent than Rob, more consistent than Sandra. And I do think his win, although it's only a one-time thing, it is one of the best wins in my opinion.
Thank you, Mike. Vote for my team.
Yeah, that's the only one I'm
Thank you.
One of the most consistent players of all time, great survivor average, pretty good in all the facets of the game. I think he gets a lot of credit for the whole meat shield strategy, though I don't know if it was fully his idea. I think his first one to execute it the best. I think a lot of people have used the strategy now moving forward because it's been shown to be so effective. Ava, he is a male. But what do you think about Jeremy Collins?
I love Jeremy. I will give you all that. Jeremy seems like such a good guy. I'll think you just for me to like a man on Survivor, you just have to seem like a good person and not be an arrogant person the whole time. Jeremy seems like a really good guy, so I like Jeremy. I think he's a great player, and yeah, I do. If I was to draft a man, Jeremy would be one of my choices.
Look at you, Jacob. Two good picks. All right, you're up. Who you're gonna pick?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I have 5 people that I'm thinking between, and I'll probably get at least 2 of these.
Maybe if you not take Mike Gabler at all.
But I'm trying to think here.
Please don't pick Gabler.
Because I'm worried about picking some of these older players, because I feel if I pick one, people are going to be like, oh, well, their game will translate. And it's maybe it doesn't need to. I don't really care. I'm not going to care if Magic Johnson can be a good player in this era of the NBA.
I was about to make an NBA analogy.
Are you going to draft the Will Chamberlain equivalent?
But
who is that?
This one person I think might get a lot of votes, but I think there's some arguments against this person. There's 2 that I think might not be super popular. So I'm going to pick. Oh, man. I feel everyone hates this person. Fuck it. Sarah Lucina.
Sarah. Interesting.
Booing. I don't give a shit.
Tony and Sarah.
Yeah, I'm going to save the old school players for later, maybe. I just feel some people might not even seen their season. So how am I gonna get votes for them anyways? But Sarah Lucina, she also, if you think about it, similar to Jeremy Collins, has made the merge all 3 times that she's played. Granted, the first time she played, I kind of felt like she was a nobody. When she was on Game Changers, I was like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And she dominated the season, and she made me eat my words. But I think her win is also a really good win. Granted, people are gonna say the cast sucks, but when you think about it, all these fucking winners.
I don't think the Game Changers cast sucks. I think it was a bad season. I think the
Okay.
cast sucks.
I just feel like a lot of people felt like a lot of the good players went out early. And when you're at the merge, when the game ramps up, when you don't have someone like Malcolm that's there, right? You don't have Sandra, you don't have Tony, people are going to feel like she has a lot easier of a time. And I do think that kind of happened. I think if those people are there, maybe she doesn't play as well or as dominant. But I mean, she's made the merge all 3 times. She got close to winning Winners at War. I mean, people hype up Tony for winning Winners at War. I'm like, Sarah deserves just about as much credit for that. And yeah, I mean, yeah, Sarah wasn't as interesting in Kagiyan and she was the merge boot, but I mean, she made the merge and I think she does have a good social game. People just think she's boring. People also don't agree with her beliefs a lot, but like whatever, bro. Like I'm also just like the way I see it, if you are super like stuck in your ways with your beliefs and you get people who have a complete opposite set of beliefs to vote for you and give you $1 million, I think you're a genius. So yeah, I'm like that's really hard to do. So I'm like, yeah, Sarah is a really good player, and that's why I picked her. Sarah and Tony, that's a good duo right there. I think that's one of the greatest duos of all time, too. Not really. Most successful duos, I'll say.
Sarah was seen as like the Nicole Franzel of Survivor for me.
Oh,
for those
that's
who don't,
here.
for those who don't know, I'm not a big Nicole Franzel fan, but I do think she is a good player. I'm not with Sarah. I think she's one of the top 10 players of all time. I think her game changer scheme is pretty impressive. I wasn't really impressed at the time, though it did grow on me. After a while, then I think her game on Survivor Winners at War was very impressive. I think she dominated the game with Tony, and she's one of the reasons why Tony was able to go so far. She also was on the Challenge USA, and she did make the final. No, she won the Challenge USA, so.
Yeah, I thought this was for Survivor, but thank you.
It shows that her game does translate to other social strategy games. I think she's very talented, a lot of assets. I think her personality might not be the best for TV. I don't just gonna say that, but I do think she's a good player.
I agree. I really like Sarah. Like personal beliefs aside, like Sarah is one of my favorite Survivor players. I don't know why. Like I get why people are like, oh, she's like not the best for TV or like she's boring or whatever. But like I just really enjoy watching her. I probably would have eventually picked her, but yeah, I really like Sarah. I like watching her a lot.
You know, Michael did a lot of advocating for Jeremy, so I feel like I should return the favor, but I just think Sarah blows. I think Sarah sucks. So I'm just not a big fan. Listen. Sarah, and Jeremy actually do have very similar, I would say, I don't know about game styles, but very similar like projections in the game, similar placement. So I think Sarah is like right on par with Jeremy in terms of gameplay, but I just think it's a snooze fest every time I'm watching her. I just never have fun necessarily watching Sarah, but I do think she is a great player who dominated Game Changers and also dominated with Tony Winners at War. So I totally understand why she would be picked.
I think her strategy is something that doesn't really show on camera. I think she's one of the best social games in Survivor. But I think if you have a social game, you can't always really see it because you can't really see them interacting with all the Survivor players. So I think that's part of the reason. If this is like maybe a Big Brother season, which we have the 24/7 live feeds, Sarah might get canceled, but be able to see her social game as well. So could work.
What is it about Sarah's beliefs that go get her canceled, or are we gonna get canceled? We talk about it on this.
We're gonna write it. I'll put it like that.
Okay, I got you.
Jacob.
No.
Ava, you're up next.
It's my turn. Okay.
Sarah with your next pick.
Did you ask if I was gonna pick Sarah? No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I didn't think.
Okay. I get 2. So my first one, I'm gonna do our first new era winner. And go with D. Who in my opinion is Michael. Stop the facial expressions over there. I feel like obviously with our new era people, we've only seen all of them once. There have been no returning seasons since Winners at War. So there's been a lot less data to go off of based on how these people would do if they were to play multiple times, etc. But I think the most dominant winner of the new era, hands down, is D. I think especially coming off of, at least for me, like 41 through 43 were like not my favorite seasons. So coming into like these newer seasons and seeing really dominant women winning back to back to back, I feel like Dee started that trend of like just like a really dominant woman like winning the game, and I think that kind of brought like my attention and my like love for Survivor back for the new era. Was these types of characters. So yeah, I'm gonna pick Dee. I think comparison to every winner ever, is she the best winner? Absolutely not. But I do think that she is probably the most dominant player of the new era.
For sure. I probably would not have picked a new era player this high, though it could be because of recency bias, but I do think Dee is the best player of the new era by a landslide. I think she played a really impressive game, pretty good at all the assets. I think she's going to play again. I consider doing really well in return. Love Dee. Not really much to complain about her.
Yeah, I had Dee pretty fairly high. I love Dee. I think she's dominant. Also, I think that there's a good chance she's gonna muster up some votes because people have been watching the new era. At least the people who are gonna be voting in this, they've all seen the most recent season. So I think Dee's pretty popular, and I do agree that in terms of just dominant wins, obviously Dee is definitely the best. There's more to say about Dee, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, I only reacted because I was not expecting to be picked this early.
I
But
agree.
like, if you think about it, like a lot of winners, they're like really good strategically, and they maybe don't have like the social aspect like refined. I do think she's good at challenges, she's good strategically, she's good socially. She played a dominant game. She really only was in danger at Final Five, and I think a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, she only made it far because Katura is stupid. You can make that argument for a lot of winners. Like even Parvati, there's a chance she doesn't win if it's a final three, and Suri wins, right? Like that being a final two so it's like a lot of winners get lucky. Who cares? Like if you get too lucky too often, I think that's one thing. If you get lucky once at final five, I'm okay with it. But I do think that is like not great. But yeah, I think Dee's super well rounded. I think she's the best new era winner. I think if Jesse had 143, I'd say he is, but like Dee and Jesse are like my top two players in the new era. So yeah, for new era, like Dee being the first new era to be picked makes a lot of sense to me.
For sure. Well, Dee is off the board, the first new era player off. Now you get the ninth pick, the first pick in the third round. Who will you be drafting with your next pick?
This is going to be a hot take because I feel like people are going to say that this person did not deserve to win. But I don't care because I love her, so it doesn't matter. It's the team of people Ava likes. Hello, so I'm picking Michelle Fitzgerald, who many people are. I also know Ryan probably would have picked her in the next round, and that's what made me pick some other people. So I'm taking Michelle. I love Michelle. Wow, I knew you would pick her, so I had to act proactively here. I was gonna say
fine. Everything's fine.
Even though I know a lot of people would argue that Aubrey also deserved to win that season, like I've said many times, I love Aubrey. Like I will stand Aubrey forever. But I don't think that takes away Michelle's win. I think Michelle absolutely deserved to win that season, and I think her game in Winners of War, while it was not like the most impressive thing compared to a lot of other like very dominant players who flopped in Winners of War, I think she was able to maneuver her way the best she could in that season as well. So I feel like she had, and if she were to play again, I feel like she has a lot of potential. She's kind of become a name for herself on the challenge. And I think kind of her social game and that kind of aspect of what made her successful in Survivor is making her successful over there as well. So I feel like overall she's like just a dominant player across the board. And I just like her, so that's why I picked her.
Not going to spoil the challenge that much, but for those who saw the final last week, it was very controversial. We'll go into more details in the challenge podcast. Yeah, I'm a big Michelle fan. She's my Survivor crush. I'm not going to lie. Maybe play some stuff. I think she is one of the most impressive players in Survivor. She is the only player to never get voted out. She's playing to day 39 twice, playing first and third. Even on Winners of War, I think she's one of the more impressive zero-vote games in Survivor history. She literally had 4 people in Nick, Adam, Danny, and Wendell trying to get people to vote for her so she can get second, but they didn't do so because they didn't want Natalie to win. Even then, it was her, Sarah, and Natalie Land, I think she gets a lot of votes, could definitely win the games. I think she's a really impressive player. I think underrated in a lot of senses. I think she understands the social game really well, and she has the strategies for pretty better physically than I think people give her credit for. So yeah, I love Michelle.
I was probably going to pick Michelle too. Maybe not this round, maybe the round right after. I'm not sure. She's extremely popular. Everything Ryan just said lines up. She proved on Winners at War why she won the first time. Obviously you can make the argument that Aubrey deserved to win, but Michelle had a good game. And like I said, she came back in Winners of War, and her game in Winners of War is one of my favorites of the season easily. And so, yeah, I think that it's going to be extremely popular. She's going to get some votes. I think Ava just got all the girlies and gays votes again for sure.
It's the goal.
Michael, I know you've made much opinions of what my Michelle takes in the past. So what do you think about Michelle?
Well, I don't think she's a bad player because like she's a winner, right? Like I don't think anybody on this list is a bad player, and I think you think some of these players are bad, Ryan, who might not even get drafted. But I do think Michelle is a good player. She's played twice and she's never been voted out, so I do respect that. I just think, for instance, you don't have the same like grace towards Sandra, who won on her first 2 tries. If Michelle comes back, she could go pre-merge too, and it's like, now what? If I trash Michelle, are you going to defend her as much? Probably not. But it's like Sandra shouldn't be punished. Like you pick Sandra, but I'm just saying like Michelle, yes, she's played twice, and not a lot of winners can say they got to the end twice. But I'm like, if we increase that sample size because you like to do this weird 100 times played tactic or whatever, I don't know if Michelle does that good if she plays a 3rd, 4th, or 100th time. But again, she is a winner. So I'm just saying, in comparison to other winners, I don't know how well she does, but I do think she does well because she, in terms of like her first time playing and she won, she beat Aubrey. I personally don't think she should have. I think even some jury members were like, oh, we regret our decision. But I don't hold that against her. Your job is to get people to want to vote for you on the island, not from their couch after the season airs. And Michelle did that. So I will advocate for Michelle to that extent. But I think one thing that isn't super interesting about her game is she didn't go to a whole lot of tribal councils pre-merge. And like, that's not a bad thing. Winning challenges pre-merge and keeping your tribe safe and keeping your numbers isn't a bad thing. But I do think like she played a lot less game than Aubrey. And I think that kind of results in her not being seen as a great player or whatever. But I don't know. I think in terms of being consistent, she's good. I also feel like her individual win, similar to Sandra, isn't that impressive, though.
Yeah. Michelle is still off the board. Michael Wright, you're up next. Who will be joining Cops R Us in your team?
This is kind of funny. There's like 5 people that I have my eye on still. And they didn't get picked, surprisingly, after Sarah, so that's like good for me. But I'm gonna pick Natalie Anderson. I'm gonna force.
That was a pick.
But I know that's like kind of hard to like rational. Like Natalie Anderson is weird in the sense that she won her first time, and then she was first her second time, but she also made it to the end twice. So it's like it's kind of hard to rank her second game. It's not like she didn't get jury votes. Granted, I think a lot of those votes were because of Edge of Extinction and before the game started. So I feel like having a good social game on a returning season is kind of hard to assess because a lot of your social bonds and all the work you put in socially happens before the game even starts. So it's like how much, but I'd say Natalie's first win I felt like was really good. I think she had one of the best end games for a winner and the most entertaining end games for a winner. And she I think she didn't get 3 votes at the end. And like in defense of her, one of those votes was specifically to fuck over someone so that they don't get second place, right? That person was going to vote for her. And then the other 2 votes were loved ones who were always going to vote for their daughter or girlfriend. So Natalie could have swept the votes if this was not a blood versus water season. And again, also in terms of women, Natalie, I think is honestly better than Michelle and Dee, in my opinion. So I think she's on par with Dee. I could hear people out, but yeah, I think Natalie Anderson's a really solid player. And her winners at War Game is hard to judge, but I think her first time around was really solid.
Yeah, I will say the Baylor vote off is one of my favorite tribal councils of all time. Her playing the Idol and Jacqueline's really impressive. I think her game in Similar Sir, their Germany Revenge game is fantastic. Winners Awards, a little bit more rough. I think her Edge of Extinction goes into play, but yeah, I think she's a very impressive winner. Probably a better player than what happened in Winners Award, but yeah, she was my next pick.
Yeah, I'd also say in defense of her,
Yeah.
not that I think Amber is like this amazing winner, but I think Amber went home because her husband's on the island. I'm pretty sure Natalie Anderson's is what some of Jeremy's Collins is like godmother, or like her sister's child is like has Jeremy Collins as their godfather. So like they're also like,
I did not know that actually.
and like they were on the same tribe. So like I felt like one of them was destined to be screwed over.
Mhm.
But yeah.
I was about to say, like, Natalie that's pretty much the only reason she was voted out first, right? Like, they couldn't really come to a consensus, so they had to pick somebody, and they just targeted Natalie or Jeremy.
Yeah,
And
I
so-
like literally just watched that season like within the last couple weeks. And yeah, I am the number one hater of Edge of Extinction as a twist. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's so stupid. I understand it for Winners at War, but I think it's so stupid. So I feel like because of that and like that played a huge part in Natalie's game in Winners at War, like it's hard for me to look at that season objectively because like I hate the twist so much. It affects her more than other people that season. But I feel like especially in her first season, she was a very dominant winner. I definitely would have picked her soon.
For sure. Yeah. Well, Jacob, you're up next. Who's gonna be your next pick?
This is really tough. I wanted both Michelle and Natalie on my team to steal some of those women, but couldn't get either of them. Damn. Looking at about 4 or 5 people here. These are all people around. Actually, I probably shouldn't say, just so you guys don't know. I was going to say what seasons. I think I'm going to go with a popular player, somebody who everybody loves. I'm going to go with Tyson.
That was my next pick also.
I am going with Tyson.
Oh my God.
I do not think that Tyson is by any means like the most impressive Survivor player of all time. He fumbled in Heroes versus Villains, lots of flaws in Tocantins, got voted out twice in Winners at War, but there's no denying his entertainment. He's top 5, I would say, confessionalists in the history of the show. And his win on Blood vs. Water was a very dominant and good win. So yeah, maybe it would take, if he played the game like 20 times, maybe he'd only win twice, but maybe those 2 wins are very impressive. He clearly knows the game. And when he does want to turn it on, he's very well-rounded. He's obviously very good physically. He plays a good social game. Everyone's laughing with him. Everyone loves him on the island. And strategically could probably use some work, but it's not like he's a dummy. So I do think he's a very well-rounded player, very popular. I want him on my team. I want Tyson.
Yeah, I think he's one of my favorite players of all time. He was my next pick. I'm pretty pissed about this. I think he's someone who's learned the more he's played Survivor. When he first was on like Tocantins and Heroes vs. Villains, he didn't really know Survivor that much. He kind of was like a recruit who just got thrown on the game and kind of like just played the way he played the game. After Heroes vs. Villains, he started becoming a much more of a fan of Survivor, became a super fan, understood the strategy, gives really good insights on his podcast, ends up having one of the most dominant ones of all time. Comes with one of the biggest targets on his back in Winners at War with his connections throughout the cast. I think he did a pretty okay job with that, though he did get voted out twice. One of my personal favorites. Love that man. Nothing to comment on Tyson that much.
Yeah, I'd say Tyson's individual win is also one of the best. But if we're like judging him as a player, he kind of sucked like every other time he played. And like, here's the thing, right? Like, and if I'm like a football team or something and I go to the playoffs and I get blown out every fucking time, but then I win and I like blow out someone once. Like if I go to a Super Bowl and I score 60, I don't care that I lost to 0 to 63 other times. Like, and at the end of the day, Tyson won. So I'm not going to really hold his 3 other times that he lost against him. Granted, he made it pretty far in Tocantins. I don't think he was like this amazing player in Tocantins or anything like that. And I don't think he was very like he did do one of the stupidest things ever on Heroes versus Villains, and he did get voted out twice. But yeah, I mean his first win, his only win, I guess, was pretty solid, and it was very dominant. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad pick.
Yeah, I don't think he's like abysmal in other seasons. Like he made a terrible boneheaded decision in Heroes Villains. Like that would
Iconic though, legendary.
Yeah, no, he's a great character, like no denying that. But like I think being like, oh, he was terrible in every other season is like a stretch. Like he was not awful in every other appearance. Like he was decent. But I think obviously like he had made a terrible decision in Heroes Villains. Like I feel like he played fine in Token Chains. He wasn't special gameplay wise. But I feel like he was like mid. And then obviously had a very dominating win. So definitely a good pick.
All right, 2 picks to the host, Ryan Weingarter.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick 2 men, and like he hated on that later, but I have 2 men on my team. First pick is going to be a very how do I word this? Impactful player in my opinion. I think he's kind of like one of the founding fathers of Survivor strategy. I'm really happy he returned for Winners Award, but wish it better. Give me Yul Hwan. I think Yul kind of was the first strategic player to win Survivor solely on his strategy. I think kind of like set the foundation for like modern Survivor strategy as a whole. I think kind of perfected what to do if you're in the minority, come to merge. I think his idol, even though he had the super idol, which we will mark him down for, he still was able to use it to the best of his abilities, control the vote, a header flip on his side and join him. Ozzy, Becky, and Sundra. One of the most revolutionary strategists at the time. It was really impressive. Even though Winners of War, he kind of was running the tribe the first few rounds. That whole scenario in which he gets voted out for is also, I think, a little hard with him being with his allies, kind of people he had a pretty alliance with. So I think it was kind of not fully in his control. But yeah, I'm really impressed with Yul. I think he's one of the best strategic players in Survivor history. One of my favorite wins of all time, him versus Ozzy and Becky. Yeah, love Yul Hwan.
Yeah, I think he's also one of the best strategists. I will say, this isn't really to knock his game, but I also feel like part of the reason why he has that is, like you said it, he was like one of the first like really strategic people to win. And like, I think there are other winners who are more strategic than him. I just think that the first, and I think because he was like a trailblazer, I think his strategic game is not bad. I think it's really good. It's among the best, but I think it's like slightly inflated, if that makes sense. Like I just feel like if his game happened in like season 20 something, I don't think anyone would like hype up his strategic game like much. It's just that he had a much older season. I do kind of hold there's like a weird echo, but there's like him having the super idol. I have mixed feelings about. I feel like super idols kind of suck. And I think him beating Ozzy, I have mixed feelings about because strategically speaking, it's not like good to have someone like Ozzy at the end, but it's also like, well, if Ozzy keeps winning, you can't get rid of him. But like, and it's like Ozzy played really well, and you'll still manage to beat Ozzy. So I have mixed feelings about that, but like I do think Yul's a really good winner.
I think his win over Ozzy was kind of like the start of like the brain versus brawn element in Survivor. And I think him winning over Ozzy kind of like boosts his legacy even more. Just because Ozzy was like the fan favorite of the season, that arguably one of the most iconic players in Survivor history. So him showing brain can be brawn and to show like Survivor, I think can like change the state of Survivor. So I think
yeah, I agree. I really love Yul, so I'm in support of that choice.
Sorry if my audio quality went down. I can no longer use my microphone because my dumbass charger port. I know it's a huge shame. Everybody just left the podcast. But Yul was like one of my childhood heroes. I know it sounds like somewhat corny, but he was one of those people where I looked on TV and I was like, somebody like Lou looks like me can go out and win Survivor. Like that dude was one of my childhood heroes. So I have nothing bad to say about Yul. I mean, yeah, of course that the super idol, especially going into Final 3, like something that can be played at Final 4, is a little bit like overpowered. But his strategy was obviously there, and it was one of the first to be like that astute at the game. And I do kind of give him more credit for beating Ozzy than Ozzy being at the end, especially because there wasn't really an opportunity to get rid of Ozzy, and he still beat him. So love Yul so much. His game on Winners of War wasn't necessarily terrible either. I think he just ended up on a tribe where, you know, Nick, Michelle, and Wendell had a pregame alliance that did not include Yul.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Jacob mentioned childhood heroes. We're drafting a childhood hero of mine. One of the, honestly, I think Mount Rushmore Survivor people, fellow super fan, gotta go with Cochran. I just have to. Look, I think he, as a trailblazer, like some other people on my team, I think his game on Karen Melwin is flawless, literally a perfect game. He dominates the game start to finish. He kind of was able to put himself in a good position with Philip. He's put himself in a good position with Dawn, Andrea, Malcolm Reynolds, and he really targeted him. I think it was very impressive. I think he kind of learned from his mistakes in South Pacific, which was a complete train wreck. But even then, he kind of got this really good story of him almost beating Ozzy at Redemption Island. Love Cochran. I think he kind of showed that anyone can win Survivor. He was one of the first people that looked like him to win Survivor. Yeah, I love Cochran. Nothing bad to say about him.
Yeah, I think Cochran was someone I was considering picking, especially because he's also one of the few winners to sweep a jury. I was looking at a trend of just the people selected though. Like, it's just weird because his first time he did not play good at all, and I think his second time he played so dominant. So again, I value someone winning than someone losing and doing good or losing and doing bad. So I don't really hold his first time around against him. But it is if you look at it, Rob, he didn't do he didn't make it far in Heroes versus Villains, right? And he comes back and he wins. And you look at someone like Jeremy and Sarah, they don't make it far into the merge. They come back and they win. You have someone like Tyson, who makes the stupidest move in Survivor history, and he comes back and wins. And it's I feel like that helped Cochran a lot. Cochran was considered a terrible player, and I think a key component of Survivor is managing your threat level. But I almost feel like he kind of didn't need to manage anything going into the game. And again, people are going to say Kim and Rob played with stupid casts. Cochran played with stupid casts as well. The favorites weren't even that good at the game. So that's my one issue of Cochran. And I do feel like if you play, he should be applauded for sweeping a jury. But if you're playing with a stupid cast, sweeping a jury is pretty easy. Or much easier. It's not easy, but it's much easier, if that makes sense.
I do think Cochran is a legend. I think that he kind of started the nerd archetype that Survivor looks for all the time these days. And I think Cochran was the first to do that. And I really enjoyed watching Cochran, even on South Pacific when he didn't play well his first time around, just because of how, he's, relatable he was and how much of a fan he was and how good he was at talking to the camera and talking to Jeff at Tribal Council. So Cochran's definitely a favorite of mine in terms of personality. In terms of his gameplay, I kind of agree with Michael that I don't think it's the best. Obviously, South Pacific was a train wreck, but even on Caramone, he did play a very dominant game. But to me, the cast of favorites was actually pretty terrible. Same with the fans, and I think Cochran had a lot of steps along the way, including didn't he get an advantage in the final immunity challenge that helped him win that? I don't know if he would have been voted out anyways, but still, this is not to knock Cochran too much because he did play an extremely good game in the second fans versus favorites. It's just, I guess, also a little bit tainted in my brain because I don't like that season at all very much. So. Yeah, I think Cochran's great. I still think he was a good pick.
Yeah, not a great season, but I do think Cochran did have a very dominant game. That I almost just said that season, not semester.
Having to play with Philip Shepard and Brandon Hance in the same tribe.
That's fair. He was up against some buffoons. Let me tell you.
Well, Cochran is off the board. Jacob, you're the next pick. Who you're going to be picking?
See, now I am very lost. I don't know. I could pick almost anybody at this point. I don't know what my criteria should be for my next pick. But I'm just going to go who's at the top of my board, who's definitely going to be a controversial one. I'm picking JT Thomas.
Ooh, why did you want to pick JT for your next pick?
JT is another Survivor legend. He's entertaining. I think everyone knows him. JT also, did have the first perfect game ever in Survivor history. We're talking about players who swept the vote. JT was the second person to sweep the vote, but was the first person to play a perfect game while doing so. There's no denying how good of a game JT played in Tocantins. It's just his appearances after that is where all of his reputation gets tainted, which I totally understand. He makes two completely horrible decisions in both of his next appearances. But even on both
Honestly, probably 3.
What'd you say?
Maybe 3.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not saying JT is by any means a perfect player, but even on Heroes vs. Villains and Game Changers, what I love so much about JT is how hard he wanted to play the game both times. And on Heroes vs. Villains, even though he made bad decisions, he was running that Heroes tribe. There's no question about it. And so, he has the skills to go far into the game every time he plays. It's just on Heroes, Villains, and Game Changers, he decided to overplay way too much. Obviously, everybody knows him handing the idol to Russell. He made some of the stupidest decisions in Survivor history, but I don't necessarily knock that. as JT as an overall Survivor player, because if he wanted to play smart and win each time, I think he could hold those big moves back. But he was playing with winner's money on both of those occasions. And we all know how good of a game he played on Tocantins. So I think JT is a fantastic Survivor player who just decided that he wanted to have some fun and overplay.
See, I think JT, I agree with you. I think JT is his own worst enemy. I think his game in Tocantins is pretty flawless. I think after that season, you could have made the argument he was the best Survivor player of all time. He came in with such a big target on his back, just like the way he looks from everyone else in the cast. Dominated that season from start to finish. It was very impressive. Heroes vs. Villains, he was running the Heroes tribe. Even the people in the bottom, like Tom and Colby, wanted to work with him. Makes one of the dumbest moves of all time, getting his idols to wrestle and getting voted out at the merge. Then we go to Game Changers, in which he tries to make this big fiasco of a move, which is one of the most insane tribal contests of all time, by getting out Sandra, which, had it worked, he would have been in the majority alliance on his tribe with Aubrey and Malcolm. It almost worked. Instead, they target his closest ally, Malcolm, and he ends up getting voted out with an idol he left at camp. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I think he has the tools to be a good player. He has a lot of it in him, but he's his own worst enemy, which marks me down for him, like, as a player.
Yeah. If he ever plays again, let's just hope he doesn't find an idol, because that's really where his problems stem from. Yeah, I mean, Tocantins is one of my favorite seasons. I do really enjoy JT on that season, and then he just kind of makes some really dumb decisions after that in follow-up seasons. But yeah, I mean, strictly going based off of like that season, JT is a great pick.
Yeah. Tocantins is one of like the first seasons I've ever watched, so I view JT in a very high regard. I am aware of his flaws, and I do think like his game's like not just getting worse, it is like really bad each time. I do give him credit for Heroes versus Villains for one, having at least a good pre-merge. You know, like it's not like he just got to the merge; he kind of dictated who made it there. And in his defense, it's still really stupid, but like no one really knew who Russell was. And I think if I was in JT's shoes, I probably don't give Russell an idol, but like I feel like, oh, this guy's at the bottom. This guy isn't connected to the rest of the cast. He just came, he's fresh from playing. I'm probably going to try to pull him in if I think he's at the bottom. So I respect the thought process, right? It's a dumb move because of the result, but like the thought process is there. And like, yeah, he's won. He played a perfect game. So I wouldn't be too harsh on him in terms of legacy.
When JT did hand over the idol, like he told the entire Heroes tribe about it, and although some of them thought it was probably stupid, they all let him do it. Nobody stopped JT from doing it. That's how much control he did have over those Heroes tribes. They're all like, all right, well, it's better to not have it in JT's hands. Like, let's just let JT give him the idol maybe. And none of them thought that maybe this would screw us over.
Silly.
You know, Rupert's a pretty silly guy, but hey, a Survivor. If JT is off the board, Michael Wright, you have the next pick. Who will you be picking?
Yeah, again, there's like each time people get picked, there's like 3 or 4 I have in mind. And I'm deciding between 2, but I think I'm gonna pick Wendell. The reasoning behind my choice is although the vote tied, right? And you would say that clearly he couldn't have dominated the game as much because the vote tied. And he didn't sweep. I'm like, people consider Dom to be one of the most dominant losing finalists and one of the closest to win. And he pretty much, Wendell and Dom, although they did things to separate their games, they also played very similarly. But I think Wendell dominated. Again, he's one of those winners that had a stupid cast, so people are going to try to discredit him. But again, I think if you're good enough, you're going to make everyone around you look stupid. So yeah, I think Wendell's dominant. He's good he's good strategically, and he was able to beat Dom because he's also good socially. Winners at War, I low-key wasn't the biggest fan of him. I don't know what happened to him. He was acting strange, but I still
his ex-girlfriend. I will give him that.
I still think he was a very solid winner. He was also one of the few Survivor players where I got the winner pick correct preseason. I really did it because I thought he looked like Childish Gambino, which isn't even true. I don't know why I thought that at the time. Like, he really doesn't look like him at all.
He looks like,
but yeah,
I actually do think he looks like him. I'm not gonna lie.
But yeah, my sister has met Wendell. I will say, Wendell is controversial, so and like but don't let that impact when you vote for me, guys.
Is he controversial?
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, but
Yeah.
He should
No,
not.
he's not. Actually, never mind.
He should not have fuck D. He should not have done it.
But yeah, I mean, Wendell played a really dominant game, and I hope people's last impressions of him are not stemming from Winners at War. I hope they focus on his winning game. So
Yeah, I think I would agree, Wendell, on Winners at War. Because I literally just watched this season. I'm doing my big Survivor rewatch in 2025. I'm gonna rewatch every season. Why I decided to start with 40, I don't know. I wanted to watch the new era, and I just started with 40 for some reason. Anyways, was really strange. Like he was acting strange was a really good way to put it, because I was like, what is wrong with him? Why is he acting like that? But I do feel like he was very dominant in his original season. I'm not a big Wendell fan as like outside factors, but I do think I can appreciate the game. It's the second season, no.
He will be on a new ABC show, Extreme Home Makeover. So
What?
we will be getting more Wendell in 2025.
That show is coming back?
He's going to be one of the what's it called? They make houses.
Yeah, but isn't that like Extreme Makeover? That's the show from like years and years ago where they like come and like redo these people's houses. That's like
He's one of the architects, not architects, but like he helps make the houses.
yeah, that's a throwback show. I didn't know it was coming back. Anyways, derail.
Yeah. Well, very similarly, I've also picked Wendell as my winner pick just based off of the promo. It was like, hey, he looks cool, I'll pick him. And so then he became one of my favorites and was rooting for him to win. So I really do like Wendell, and I think he played a very fantastic social game on Ghost Island, no question about it. Him and Dom dominated the season. In terms of his Winners at War game, also to his credit, like almost the entire cast came out being like his edit was extremely weird. Like that's not at all how he was coming off on the island. Almost everybody on that cast has come out in defense of Wendell. So that does, but also then we don't know because of his antics outside of the game, which we won't dive too deep into. But I also met him at the Bryson Wendell event, and for a few moments we talked, and it was very nice. So I'll give Wendell credit. I like Wendell.
I will say this. So him and Michelle are obviously friends, and they even came in straight up with a pregame alliance. They were always going to work with each other. But I think the producers wanted to like make the whole Michelle Wendell storyline a thing, when in reality Wendell and Michelle were each other's number one ally. So I think that comes into play. But yeah, I think he's a very good player, very overall strong player. I think he gets in his own head a lot and might get overshadowed, maybe blindsided. I think he's a very good player. But yeah, Wendell's off the board. Ava, you have 2 picks. What will you be picking?
Is this round 4 and round 5? Or 5 and 6?
Almost halfway done.
4 and 5.
4 and 5. Okay. I'm like just trying to keep up. We've been at this for a while. Okay. I'll make this quick. We can speed this along. We've been doing this for an hour. So I am picking 2 old school, like first 10 season winners. I'm taking it back. I was the first of the new era. Now I'm throwing it way back. My first one, and I feel like this will be a controversial pick in terms of like people agreeing that she was a good winner, or like a good player, but I just really enjoyed watching her, and I'm picking Jenna Maraska from the Amazon.
Wow.
I love the Amazon. I love these early seasons. Like I am a big like old school, like season 1 is like so different, but then like really early Survivor seasons, like that's my jam. I watched those as a kid, and I love Jenna Maraska, and I know obviously she was on All Stars and she had to leave for family reasons like very early, so we didn't really get to see her play. But yeah, I think she had a very successful game on the Amazon and I don't know that she's like the best winner of all time, like definitely not. But I feel like she just played a unique game and it worked out for her, and stripping for peanut butter was really silly. So that's also up there.
Shout out Rob Cesternino.
Yeah, exactly.
My biggest takeaway from that is I'm surprised you love the Amazon so much.
I was going to say also.
Hearing all the men on that season say like the most disgusting, vile things in Survivor history.
Well, yeah, I don't like any of the men, but I like Jenna.
That's fair. I always forget that Jenna is tied for the record for women immunity challenges.
Yeah.
One that I forget the most, but she did it, and she won, and I have to give her credit. She did what she needed to do, absolutely.
She also dated Ethan Zahn for about 10, 11 years. So
Really like them together, to be honest. I really like it.
Jenna's one of those winners that I don't really have much of an opinion on. I know she's good at challenges. I feel like one thing, like most of the winners picked before her, like a lot of times you're seen as like the best player of the season, but then you don't go on to win. But I feel like a lot of those people that we have picked prior to this, like Wendell or JT or like Tony and like Rob, like they were seen as the best players and they made it to the end, which is very hard to do. I don't think a lot of people view Jenna as one of the best players of her season. But like that's fine. But I would just say there's like a very obvious gap in like quality compared to her and the other players that were picked before her. So
I also think that's like she played season 6. Like it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just a different game back then. Like if you put Jenna against, you know, a season of people on like Game Changers, like Jenna would get steamrolled. But it was season 6. I feel like she
No,
played
that's
well for the time.
That's fair. I think like previously Ryan credited Yule for being like the first like really strategic winner survivor. And like I'm not gonna discredit Jenna for Rob because she beat Rob. But like if Rob won, he'd be the one seen as the most strategic. So like yes, it was season 6, but like Rob was ahead of his time. And it's like he had the strategic chops. But like Jenna, again, she beat Rob, so I'm not gonna discredit her, but like
He was called the smartest player to never win by Jeff Probst.
but yeah, I'm just like, yeah, you can say, oh, well, she played an older season, but like, so did Rob Sesternino. And like, he also had strategic capabilities to have like run the game and whatnot.
But I feel like he's like one of the few who was like that in the old seasons. It's not like everybody was like Rob. Like there was Rob who's great, but it's not like, oh, we had 10 Robs and Jenna. Like there was one. Okay, I have another pick.
I will say we do have a Commanders fan on this call, so we do have to hurry a little bit. But yeah.
I'm trying. My next pick, another old era woman who we've talked about a lot because she's married to none other than Boston Rob. But I love Amber, and I will be picking Amber. I know that controversial win. I'm picking all the controversial winners. Again, people can argue that Rob should have won and that people were just bitter. And like, yeah, I can see that. Like, I think Rob also would have deserved to win. But I love Amber. So again, this is the team of people I like. I don't have to justify why. I love Amber, so I'm picking Amber. And I also really did enjoy, that's another one of my favorite seasons. Very old school, original All-Stars.
Again, also pretty in shock. It's one of your favorite seasons. Pretty hard to
I'm an old school girly. Like, I'm not saying ever. Those are my favorite seasons ever. But, like, those are seasons I really enjoy watching.
It's a rough watch for sure, yeah.
I like All-Stars.
You know,
Like-
I like All Stars more than other people give it credit for.
I'm the same way here, but just like it's not even close to like I think one of the more fun watches. I'll put it like that.
It's old school Survivor. That's what I like. That's what I want. And to get me out of the new era, please.
One of my favorite funny moments from Survivor is the second episode in which it's raining for the first time so they get water. Then the I think it's the Shapira tribe that just all start singing "Have You Ever Seen the Rain" by CCR because they could like have water. It's one of my favorite moments in Survivor.
Thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Thoughts on Amber?
Yeah, I would just say in defense of Amber, you know, I do think Rob is very clearly better than her. But if you're going off a sample size, like Amber won on her second try. Yes, she was killed by Rob, but she also beat Rob. Like, regardless of whether she deserved it or not, she still beat him. And even then, the first time she played, she made the jury. She got 6th place, I'm pretty sure. Rob didn't do that. So, like, yes, I think, again, if you're taking the quality of Rob's win, it's much better than Amber's. And I think Amber's one of the lower tier winners. I don't think she should have been drafted this high, but like I do think she is pretty underrated in some aspects. I feel like someone like Natalie White and Russell, right? Like she also beat someone and that was controversial. But I feel like Amber had a little bit more influence on Rob. I feel like if Amber was like, I don't like this, I think Rob would actually like listen to her, right?
Yeah.
I don't think she's coming up with things, but she could influence that player. So like I do give her that credit.
Also, very similarly to Rob, like Amber at the beginning of the game when she was just getting into the showmance with Rob said to the camera, like, I'm doing this for game purposes. It wasn't like Amber was just Rob's goat that Rob just like found, they fell in love, and then Rob took to the end. Like Amber was trying to play the game strategically, and I think throughout the entire process, both her and Rob saw how beneficial it was to make the end. And by the time that they decided that, they didn't really care who won once they were both sitting at the end. And Amber was more well-liked than Rob, so I don't discredit her at all. I don't think that she played a bad game in All-Stars whatsoever. I think she played a good winning game. To me, Amber's like kind of what Michael said about Jenna, like just somebody who I don't have too much of an opinion on. Like, I don't think Amber is a bad player by any means. I don't think Amber is a great player by any means. I like Amber. I think she's a legend. I think that she's a big part of Survivor history, and she's cool.
I did fact check this. I'm pretty sure Amber was actually not. She wasn't an alternate for All Stars. I'm pretty sure they had called Colleen Haskell and Elizabeth Hasselbeck. Both had said no, so they had Amber. So you just say one of them had said yes. Whole timeline would have been changed. I don't think Amber is a bad player. She would not be the person from the Australian Outback I would have picked. I'll put it like that. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Michael Wright, you're up next. Who will you be picking with your 5th pick?
I feel like I'm at a point now where the quality of winners still kind of blur, but okay, there's someone that I want to pick, but I don't know if everyone's going to vote for him, but I'm just going to pick him anyways. I'm going to pick Tom from Palau. His game is interesting because he almost kind of didn't need to play the game for the first half. Like, yes, you're playing the game because there's a social aspect, but his tribe just kept winning immunity. And I think someone like Michelle Fitzgerald, for example, kind of gets like, oh, you barely went to tribal council pre-merge, and you didn't have to like fight or like control the game. But like, I will say Tom and Michelle are challenge beasts. They're some of the best challenge performers in Survivor history. And Tom single-handedly got every single member of his tribe except for one to get to the merge. And even then, like, one of them had to go by default. So I think he almost swept the jury, I'm pretty sure. He's good at challenges. I don't value challenges as much, but I think being so good at challenges where you keep your entire starting tribe safe is like pretty impressive. And yeah, he was good socially. He had control. Shout out Tom. I will say also, Heroes versus Villains, he didn't play that good. A lot of these winners who played their second time don't play that great, so I don't really hold that against him. So.
In Tom's defense, I do think he got kind of screwed based on his tribe with that many fans or favorites connections. So I don't discredit him that much. Stephanie LaGrosse was a big target, and the two of them were obviously a lot closer to Wild, so I don't discredit it that much. I think Tom, especially at the time, is one of the most important winners in Survivor history. I think you're kind of like the first person we ever like saw like that. Do that well in Survivor. I think he was a role model for a lot of people. I know Sandra even recently has credited him as one of the best players of all time. So I love Tom Lumberg. I think it's a great pick. Yeah. So we are going to pick this up just a little bit. So Jacob, you're up next. So Jacob, who will you be picking for your next pick?
Yeah. So there's somebody I want to pick. I don't think you're going to pick him next, Ryan. So I'm going to wait. I am going to go with the winner of one of my absolute favorite seasons of all time. I'm going with the flight attendant, Todd Herzog.
Got me. That was my next pick.
Was it really?
Yeah.
First of all,
Todd's a great pick.
Just the fact that I love China definitely plays a part in this. China's absolutely, like I just said, one of my favorite seasons. But also, like you were talking about Yul, like Todd's also right there in terms of like one of the game-changing strategists from that era of Survivor. Like, I think it's kind of still to this day, Todd's a little bit underrated in terms of just how dominant strategically he was from day one all the way until the very end. He ran into some hiccups towards the very end of the game where people wanted him out, but he still had that alliance around him that were willing to keep him safe at all times. He never won immunity, and yet, even though he was clearly seen as the biggest strategist, was still in that alliance that was taking him to the final three, and then he won that final three vote, having one of the best final tribal councils we've ever seen in Survivor. And so Todd knew what he was doing strategically. Everyone knew that he knew what he was doing strategically, and he still was able to dominate the season. And yeah, I think he's still, even though people give him credit, he's still a bit underrated.
One of the best final tribal performances of all time. I think Nick Thurman probably is the best. He going against Courtney, who had a really good performance, as well as Amanda, who was a really good player. I think because of the whole Dr. Phil situation, I think he gets a little bit discredited for his overall impressive game ability. He played one of the most impressive games of all time. Like, he was...
It's based on Survivor, not Dr. Phil.
Exactly. Dr. Phil came into play. He did the first overall pick. Very strategic, very social, very likable, very cutthroat, very good at like putting himself in sticky situations. I think he's a really impressive player.
Yeah, I was considering picking Todd over Tom, but whatever.
All right, Ryan.
What are your thoughts?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Who'd you ask?
Ava, any big thoughts on
Oh,
Todd?
sorry, you cut out, and I was like, "What?" I like Todd. I do really like Survivor China as well. I feel like especially with the people he was sitting up against at the end, especially with his dominant performance, I feel like Todd definitely just we'll just call him Tom. He definitely deserved the win and had a very dominant final tribal council performance.
Sure. All right. I'm up next. I think we're going to diversify the team a little bit. Not think I was going to draft these two people. First up is someone who I think is one of the best players of all time. People are going to agree with me, but I think I have to draft this person. Even though at the time I probably would not have voted for them at their situation, I'm going to take Sophie Clark off the board.
No, that was my
Hey.
Yeah. Honestly, at the time I was kind of pissed off Coach lost. To be honest, I was a big Coach fan. Sophie Coach won the game. I rewatched South Pacific, kind of like did some more investigation, kind of realized, okay, I see what Sophie's doing. I think she's one of the most underrated social games of all time. She was basically in a cult in her like alliance. Her alliance was literally a cult. She isn't religious at all. She pretended to be religious, to be aligned with people like Rick the Cowboy, Brandon Hance, the Hance member, Hance clan, you know what I mean. Hance family clan person. Coach, who is actually pretty normal in real life, I'm pretty sure, but just Coach. Albert was kind of the only really normal person, and she basically put herself in the control of that alliance. It's really impressive. And at Winners of War, same thing. Having friendship with people like Tyson, people like Adam, like a Jeremy. And she ended up working with people like Sophie and Tony, who she has nothing in common with at all. Sophie's so visibly upset when Tony wins. That's why I think she's a really impressive game. I think she's a really impressive player, underrated social player. Yeah, I'm glad picking Sophie.
Similar to Michelle, I think Sophie really proved herself on Winners of War, why she won that first time, for sure. She's a very good player.
Yeah, I'm a big Sophie fan. She was definitely my next pick.
Yeah, I watched this season when it aired, and I'll be honest, like after a couple of years, I was like looked at the cast and I didn't remember who won. Like that has never happened to me. Like it's happened like maybe 2 or 3 times, and I was a kid, so I'm not as analytical or being on podcasts as I was at the time. But I do think she is like a good player. Obviously, everyone is. They won, but yeah, I think she's like not that popular because again, people don't like that season as much, and she beat like a fan favorite at the end, who was probably a bigger figurehead in the alliance, I'd say. But I also think that comes off as the fact that he's a returning player. So I think that's kind of why people don't give her as much credit for her win. It's not really her own doing. It's kind of just preconceived like impressions on Coach.
Yeah, for sure. Let's pick this up a little bit. I'm going to pick my next pick for the next round. This might be recency bias. This might be because she's from my area. All I got to say is, what up, Dell? Rachel Lamont, welcome to my team.
Oh, God damn it. I was going to pick Rachel right now.
Yeah, I think she played a very interesting game last season. Obviously, we're podcasting 47 a lot. She didn't play a game the way I thought she'd be playing, but I think she's one of the better overall Survivor players in general. Really good at challenges, really good mind for the game, really good socially. I think while she didn't play perfectly, I thought she did a really good job navigating herself through a lot of situations, played pretty impressively, was in a new era cast, did a lot of good stuff, pretty good final tribal performance. I still get chills when she tells Jeff the whole funeral line. Yeah, gladly picking up my Metro Detroit native, Richard Lamont.
I love Rachel. She was also really high up there for my next couple picks. You picked 2 women. How dare you?
It's just so annoying. My whole strategy at the beginning was to pick women away from Ava, and I can't get any of them.
You do. Force Ava to pick a man, but yeah. Rachel's off the board. Jacob, you're up next. What will you be picking?
Fucking damn it. Now I have to pick another sausage here. See what we pick. I'm going with... No, No, I'm gonna go with no. I'm picking the other new era winner. I'm picking Kenzie.
No, bruh.
Kenzie. And part of that is to diversify my team and get the women on the board. But over time, I genuinely have really enjoyed Kenzie as a player as time has passed away from 46, more so than when she won the game immediately, believing that Charlie should have won. But other than that, like Kenzie obviously has the greatest social game. Was Kenzie the best strategically? Absolutely not. There are probably other winners on this list who are either more legendary or better players than her. But I want some recency bias. I want that cool, fun girl who just won Survivor. I want Kenzie on my team.
Charlie was robbed of it like that.
No, I love Kenzie. I'm actually really sad. She was. I like my next pick, but my next pick was Sophie and Kenzie. So
Michael, you big Kenzie fan?
Yes and no. She's also someone that I picked preseason to win. I
Same.
feel like her personality, I like her a lot more than Charlie. I feel like Charlie had a lot more agency and control than Kenzie, but I will say Kenzie had a lot more control pre-merge, and Charlie didn't really go to a lot of tribals pre-merge. So that kind of bolsters Kenzie's resume a bit because she went to more tribal councils and she had more opportunity to make moves. But that also means she survived more tribal councils and she was in danger more often. So yeah, I would just say my one issue with Kenzie is like Kenzie and Charlie were shown to be very good social players. And I feel like Charlie seemed to be a little bit better strategically than Kenzie was. Kenzie was left out of votes. She said her big move's going to be voting out Tiffany. And she's like one of the only people that didn't vote out Tiffany. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I considered picking Rachel or Kenzie simply because of recency bias. But I feel like the fact that we're picking them because of recency bias kind of demonstrates that they're like not that great. Like we're not saying we're not saying recency bias for D, right? We're saying D is a good player, right? You shouldn't have
I
to say.
wouldn't have said that for Kenzie. You'd have words in my mouth.
I think with Kenzie, it's like if she's good, you don't need to talk about recency bias. So I don't know if that's a good pick, Jacob. But
I think Kenzie is. Well, I think that recency bias does play a part in it, but I still probably would have put her up there. Like I would have never said that D was recency bias, and I don't think Rachel either. And I said Kenzie a little bit because I think that strategically she's not on the same level as D or Rachel, and there are some other people who won a lot earlier on in the oldest era of Survivor who I also think are slightly better strategically. So I want to get that out there. That part of it does play a part in my decision making. But other than that, I do think in terms of new era winners go, Kenzie played about as good of a game as she could have played in that season. And yeah, I think that she deserves a spot on my team.
I will say she's also one of the 3 winners from Survivor got right preseason. The other 2 have actually not been drafted yet, so we'll see if they get drafted today. But yeah, Kenzie is off the board. Michael, you're up. What are you picking?
this is hard. There's like names I want to pick, and I don't think anyone even fucking knows them. And then there's names I don't want to pick, but everyone loves them. I don't know what to
There
do.
is someone who I wanted to pick, but I didn't think enough people would know him, so I did not draft him.
Yeah.
God. Like I don't want to pick a new era person right now. Like I swear. Fuck.
You don't want to pick Gabe?
Yeah, Mike Gabler is still available, folks.
He'll be mine.
Fuck it. I feel like in terms of old school players, people that are actually known by most people, I'm gonna pick Ethan.
My dad's favorite player of all time.
I love Ethan. If I was to pick a man before all the women were gone, I would have probably picked Ethan.
I know. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, yeah, no, I picked Ethan. He's an earlier season of Survivor, so it's a little bit hard to assess him because I feel like how we view the game now is different from how it was then. But I mean, at the end of the day, you still need a good social game. Even to this day, that still holds. And Ethan had a very solid social game, and I think that is something that would carry over no matter what era he's in. And yeah, he didn't make it super far in Winners at War, but I don't care. So I think Ethan's a good player. Yeah, he's good socially. He was insulated well. He didn't really have too much of a target on his back. I know some people think, I want to see winners who deal with adversity. I think making sure that the target never falls on you is incredibly difficult. And I think that's adversity in itself. So yeah, I think Ethan, that's why I picked Ethan.
For sure. Love Ethan. I think while he was second in command of Lex, I think he was a really impressive player. I don't think his All-Stars game was that bad. I think he kind of gets its credits too much. Winners at War, I think he kind of just got screwed over based on the Caspian. Love Ethan. Great pick.
I'm an Ethan fan.
Yeah. Okay. Approved. I get two more. So I'm gonna throw it one farther back than Ethan and go with Tina from Australian Outback.
That's
I'm
what
really
I thought you were going to pick instead of Amber.
what?
I thought you were going to pick Tina when you picked Amber.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was between Tina, Amber, and Jenna for the last round, and then the New Era women are getting snubbed on this draft, so I guess I get them all. Yay me! Yeah, I really like Tina. She did Blood versus Water as well and did not do that well. Has she played another season? Did she play
All-Stars.
She did. She was on All Stars too.
He was the first boot.
Oh, that's why I don't remember her on All Stars. R.I.P. Tina. But speaking strictly from her game in Australian Outback, I am a big Tina fan. I also just really like Tina as a person. I feel like she seems like somebody I would like to be around. So again, my strategy for my team. But yeah, I'm a big Tina fan, and again, I like Australian Outback. I've said, oh my gosh, I love the season. I like most of the seasons. But I do like probably old era Australian Outback is probably my favorite season, even though it's like so different because it's so new. It's one of the first seasons I watched. Obviously not live. I don't think I was born. Or maybe I was like 0 years old, 6 months. But yeah, I'm a big Tina fan.
I am curious from this panel, in that final two between her and Colby, who would you have voted for?
Colby brought the wrong person to the end.
It's so hard to say.
Yeah, I don't really know. I do feel like I understand the rationale of I want to bring someone that's really good or much bigger of a threat, because if I can beat them, that proves how great I am, that I could beat anybody. And a lot of winners, they win and it's like, oh, you won because you were with the stupid cast. So I understand Colby's thought process, but I'm like just bring the weaker player. I don't know. And I do think it's hard because Colby broke a record challenge wise. He was good socially. He was in control. And then, but he low-key was bad at challenges, bad socially, bad strategically other times. So meanwhile, Tina, the other time she's played, she was also an early boot. She also technically was final juror, right, in Blood versus Water, even though she came back into the game. Am I wrong about that?
Yes, though I will say, had she got to the end against Monica and Jervis, she probably wins.
Yeah, and I do think Colby was also almost final juror. So Tina and Colby kind of have a similar trajectory. So just based on sample size, I guess Tina. So
I was gonna say the same thing. Based on what I've seen, I would say Tina as well. Just based on what I've seen on TV, and I don't give Colby that much credit for his 5 immunity challenge wins, because when you go back and watch the season, the immunity challenges were kind of dinky, and then he was playing against about 4 80-year-olds, and it was
shout out Roger.
It was of course Colby was gonna win those challenges. To me, there's no one who was even close to competing with him physically at all. But also, I just never, ever, ever understood the sentiment personally as to I need to bring the best to the very end so that I can beat them. Because to me, if you vote them out, you still beat them. If you are able to vote them out and you didn't get voted out, you beat them. You beat them in the game. So, if you wanted to beat them at Final Tribal, all that proves to me is, you were better at doing a Final Tribal than that. It doesn't prove that you're a better Survivor player overall. If you're able to vote them out and still win the game, that does the exact same thing to me. So, yeah, I would say Tina.
Sure. Well, Tina is off the board. So, Ava, who would you take with your next pick?
And then my next pick from one of the mid-era seasons is Denise from Survivor Philippines. I'm working my way through the women, guys. Don't worry. Hopefully there's some left so I can make my full team. But yeah, I love Denise also. Like I said, I was just watching Winners at War, so it's super fresh on my mind. But I don't think Denise is by any means the most dominant winner. But I do think she played an impressive game, and with the cards she was dealt, I think she did very well. I mean, obviously all these people are winners, so you can't be like, this person sucks. Because at the end of the day, they all have $1 million, and none of us do. So who really are we to judge? I mean, maybe you have $1 million. I don't. But yeah, I do really like Denise.
Philippines is one of my favorite seasons of all time. I think she played very dominantly. I know some people don't think her stat of surviving every single tribal season is impressive. I think it's very impressive. Her being able to survive every single tribal she went to, literally every single one of the pre-mergers. Malcolm has also gotten defensive to be multiple times. I think her and Malcolm dominated together. I don't think it was just Malcolm. I think she did a lot of the left work also. I think she's very impressive. I think she also kind of like started like a trailblazer of like the older mom figure, working with like a younger guy. We saw Maria and Charlie recently do it, so I think she's really impressive in that regard. I think she's a really good overall player.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I have a good impression of Denise in the sense that she won. She had to deal with a lot of adversity the first time, and not so much in the sense that she is a target, but because she has to constantly play the game more and harder because she's constantly going to tribal council. And I think that shows that she has great control over the tribes that she's placed on. Even in a swap, you could argue being a lone person on your tribe is really good because you're an asset or you're on the outs, but she survived that. She turned herself into an asset. One thing that doesn't get discussed is like I randomly watched a clip of this, but I saw her final tribal speech. It's probably one of the worst final tribal performances from a winner. It's actually legitimately horrible. It's
I don't think that.
Great.
and it's just
Not
like
great.
it's like thank God she's going up against Lisa and Scoopin. And although people didn't know what Scoopin was up to, some crazy shit at the time, I imagine the ripple effect of her final tribal speech being so terrible and like Scoopin wins, right? Like Denise almost sold that and almost made us live in a nightmare scenario where Scoopin could like that's terrible. But like Denise, she made it far into Winners at War as well. She was able to. I feel like her getting rid of Sandra's a little overrated. I feel like she purely did that to be like, I made a big move, and it was a big move. I don't know if it's the smartest move. If you look at that tribal council, Kim, Tony, and Jeremy, people that were all drafted early as fuck, just along with Sandra. You're gonna make a big move no matter who you get rid of. Like what? You didn't need to get rid of Sandra, who gave you an idol. I feel like that move's a little overrated, but yeah, I mean Denise is still a good player, but I think there are some really negative aspects to both her games.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, Denise is off the board. So, Michael, you're up. Who will you be picking?
Oh fuck, give me a second. God damn. Okay, I think I know who I'm gonna pick. This is like kind of recency bias, kind of not. I was gonna pick someone else for recency bias, but I'm gonna pick someone that's not that recent. I'm gonna pick Nick Wilson. I know this dude's controversial. I know I picked Sarah Lucina. I don't give a shit. These are seasons that
Nick and Sarah on the same tribe. It's kind of
Nick was on a very well-liked season. Most people would say that's a top 10 season. Most people would say it's a top 5 season within like the last 10-ish seasons. So yeah, Nick was on a great season. He was on a great cast. He had a weird edit on Winners at War, and I think he also made really stupid decisions at Winners at War. I think he could have maybe even made the end and lost, but I feel like, he kind of tanked his own agency, but I think he played a really solid game the first time around, and I think he was able to be likable and get viewers to like him and be satisfied with his win. I think if Mike White won, I'd be happy, but yeah, I think Nick was someone that I wasn't a preseason winner pick, but someone that I figured could win the game, and yeah, I view him highly within regards to Survivor. So.
He was one of my preseason winner picks. I will say that.
When it comes to Survivor alone, yes, I think Nick has one of the most impressive winning games out of the recent winners, like last 10 or 15 or so. Just the minority split vote alone is probably my favorite move, maybe in Survivor history. So that's one of the reasons why I love Nick so much when it comes to Survivor. Again, nothing outside of it. I could see arguments to be made as to why Mike White maybe should have beat him at the end. But other than that, like Nick did play an extremely impressive game coming from the David side, who was coming in at an extreme minority at the merge.
I agree.
I think Nick has a lot of impressive attributes about him. He kind of reminds me of Aris a little bit in the sense of I think he has a lot of the tools to be good at Survivor, but he also has a lot of weaknesses as well. Obviously, he almost was the first boot on his tribe. We don't know what would happen if Pat didn't get medevac, but it's definitely good chance he's the first boot in that season. I think the minority vote split was one of the most impressive moves in the history of Survivor. Does a good job working with the Goliaths come the merge. He does kind of fumble that up a bit towards the end of the game. Loses some of his allies. Loses Carl. Loses Davey. Well, I think he had a really good final travel performance. I think he has a lot of good attributes. I think there are some weaknesses out. It's a little concerned with overall consistency as a player. Where does it work? I don't think he played bad, but I don't think he played great either. I think he was kind of just like there playing like smart. I think he's a good player. I just don't think he's a great player.
Yeah.
Nick is off the board. Asian Persuasion. Who are you picking?
Yeah, I'm worried that a lot of people probably won't know who this is, but I gotta pick him because another winner who I love, I'm picking Earl.
That was my next pick.
Yeah.
Look at come on, man.
He fell. Let's be in terms of a super fan of Survivor, he fell way too far.
He was a snake in the grass. Let's remember that.
Yeah, but I mean, he's the one-time player. People remember Yellowman way more than they remember Earl, even though Earl was the winner of that season. But there's just no denying how incredible of a game he played on Fiji, and how much. I think it's like said a lot of times how like he's one of those players where if he played 100 times, he might win more times than anybody else just because of his natural Survivor sense. I mean, he didn't even know Survivor going into the game and was still able to play that well. I think that does say something about how good at the game he is. You really can't knock him on anything he did on Fiji. You really can't. So that's why he's on my team.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ava, any big thoughts on Oracle?
Did you say me? Sorry. My internet is so bad. I don't know what is going on today. It's like connected to my phone. Yeah, I would agree. I do think, especially for somebody who's only played once, like, you don't have a lot to go off of based on that one performance. But I do think that if he was to play again or play a couple more times, like, he would have the chance to be very successful again. And I think that does, market him as a very good player.
Yeah. To be honest, Earl should have been drafted before a lot of these people, and I literally didn't pick him because I feel like nobody talks about him. Jason, who loves to see Black people succeed, didn't even know who Earl was until like a week ago. So, yeah, and even then, like, as much as I do actually like Earl because of that. Like, he is like, I like, not because of that, but like, it is nice too. Like Jacob said, like, with Yule winning, if Earl sucks at the game, I'm not going to support him, right? Like Bruce, he sucks at the game. Roxroy, Phillip, they all suck, right? But it is nice to see another person like myself be good at the game. So, and it's not even that, like, Earl swept the votes, Jeremy swept the votes. So, like, yeah, shout out Earl. I think I like him. He's just not on a very well-liked season. But yeah, I would have picked Earl way sooner. I just don't think a lot of people know who he is. So yeah.
Also, personally, when it comes to the not very well-liked seasons like Redemption Island, One World, Fiji, to me, Fiji is still a step above of all of those. Fiji is a really good season, in my opinion. I know people disagree. I always love Fiji when I watch it.
See, I like Fiji for just watching the merge onwards. The pre-merge sucks. I think it's one of the most boring seasons in history. But the merge, also with the Four Horsemen, we have Alex and his shenanigans. The whole first, the Agardo blindside, chef's kiss. Just skip the whole have not pre-merge. That was awful.
Yeah, exactly.
I have the next two picks.
Third.
I think I know who
You got to go with. So when I applied for MSU Survivor, I told them I'd play like a certain person. Mike.
No, I'm sorry. No, I have like a draft board, and I switch things around on basis of who I think is gonna go. And I have this dude like right here, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I have to pick him. I see a lot of myself in this guy, Adam Klein.
Oh, yeah.
On my team. Yeah,
I
just see a lot of myself in Adam. Like neurotic Jewish superfan who gets anxious too much. Kind of see myself in him. I think he has a great mind for the game. Is great overall strategic essence. I do think he kind of gets in his own way a bit. I think he's very smart in that sense. I think he's a better player than most games like shows. I think he will more often not like be able to navigate himself in a lot of different ways. Fit in pretty good socially with most people. Make a good pitch at the end. I think his final shot performance is really impressive. I love Millennials for Shen X. Also, it's one of my favorite seasons of all time. So definitely helps me out. I wanted Adam on my team. He was like one of the first people I ever saw on TV who I just like saw. Okay, I am that kid. So yeah, big Adam fan. Glad he's on my team.
Yeah, I'd say Adam and Earl both unanimous winners going back to back. Like again, I think a lot of people also really enjoy Adam's season and like they're gonna view him favorably. I do think a lot of people don't think he was that good of a player as the season was airing, but I think in retrospect, a lot of people respect his game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I really like Adam. I feel like that's a good pick.
Persuasion, what are your thoughts on Mr. Klein?
I love Adam. I love that he's a super fan of the game. I'm Millennials vs Gen X is in my top 3 seasons, no joke, of all time. So I love that's why I respect Adam so much, because of how much I love Millennials vs Gen X. And on Winners at War, he's one of the few people who were who really brought it in Winners at War, like in terms of like entertainment value at least, and like really trying to play the game hard. He didn't play a good game, but he at least was extremely entertaining. And like outside of Tony and Sarah, and then like the old schoolers who went early, you can't say that about too many people on Winners at War. But Adam, you can point to and be like, that guy brought it. He played really hard and was very entertaining. So I have a lot of respect for Adam, and I would want to see him play again. Out of all of those people on Winners at War who could come back, it's like him and Michelle are at the top of my list of like, I want them to play again.
Yeah, him like going to the podium and trying to get that thing off, thinking style. Everyone's just
I
like,
played that.
Love Adam. Yeah. So I'll just like spoil my draft process a little bit. I'm trying to get a 50-50 split between men and women. I'll be drafting a woman with my next pick. I didn't think I was going to draft this person this high. I do like her, but I'm just not a huge fan of her game in general. I think she had 1 or 2 really impressive moments, one of the best all-time Final Tribal performances. One of my favorite characters in Survivor history from the new era, Marianne Okic. Yeah, I was between her and someone else who I'll say in a little bit when they get drafted. But yeah, I love Marianne. I literally thought that she had no chance to win the game. I thought she'd be a 0 finalist. Then after the Omar blind set, I'm like, okay, you actually have game. Like she was really impressive. Loved your little crush on Zach Wardenberger, who deserves a second chance. I will say that on the podcast. Give Zach Wardenberger a second chance. Yeah, really impressive. Great personality. I think even though a lot of people credit Carolyn as the first one to show that you can be yourself and do well at Survivor, I actually do think Marianne did that also. She was her authentic self, and she won a season of Survivor playing some really impressive moves. I think she did a lot of good stuff. Glad to have her in my team.
Okay, yeah, I'll talk about Marianne. I feel like one issue I had with her was her pre-merge wasn't that good. I value someone having a good merge game because there's a lot more you have to factor in about like managing a jury and whatnot. And like you can be an asshole towards pre-mergers and then be like, get out of here. You don't need to worry about them. So I do think
Bro.
a lot of sorry, but for Marianne, you don't have to have like a whole lot of control or like influence. And yeah, she kind of did do that, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I think her final tribal was awesome, and I think the reason why she was able to have such a good final tribal is because of the idols and also the Omer vote off. But yeah, I think my one issue with her is like, I guess I never felt like she was consistently playing a really solid game. I just felt like she was playing like an average game and made a big move, and an average game made a big move, and then got to the end, which is still a respectable way to win. But that's one like reason why I think Marianne's not getting drafted as high as these other winners.
Yeah. I mean, to me, Marianne was somebody who was a great character who it's like you said, Ryan, I did not clock as a threat to actually win until she voted out Omer. So that's where I kind of discredit her game. But in terms of a character, she's a lot of fun and definitely one of the more popular of the new era. So I think it was a good pick.
Yeah, I love Marianne. That was definitely my next pick.
Sure, yeah. We were almost 70% done. So, Jacob, you're up. Who will we be drafting?
No, I got the couple oddballs I want on my team who I don't think you guys will pick, so I'm going to save them.
You have 3 picks left. I'll put it like that.
I know. I have 3 picks left. I'm trying to get the 3 people I want, but I'm struggling because there's a couple more people early on who I want on my team who I don't think anybody will know. You know what I mean? So I'm considering picking Chris because that might get a vote from Christian. It's the only comment on this.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that too. I don't even see the YouTube comments, but I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
If you want Christian's vote, draft Chris Doherty. Not to be confused with Chris Daughtry.
I have the winners ranked on my list, 1 through 45, and Chris is number 1 out of everybody's left for me. But I just don't know if he will get a bunch of votes. I don't know if he's my favorite. But I think You know what? No, yeah. Fuck it. I'll pick Chris.
All right. Vanuatu officially off the board.
Just because I think out of everybody left, I'm looking at all the winners and make sure I don't say anything stupid. His at least top 3 in terms of best winning games. He might be the best in terms of winning game in my opinion. Like he has some flaws, like he was almost voted out first for sure. And he didn't play perfectly. He ended up, but the guys were a wreck. They were coming into the minority anyways. And Vanuatu is one of my favorite seasons, and the fact that he was able to survive that final 7 of him versus all of the women who were not just all women, like there were women coming from the same tribe who were in an alliance with each other and having them turn on each other. Some of it was the women, making some moves too early. Some of it was him having some good influence. But he also has one of the most underrated final tribals of all time, where he's like, to my knowledge, the only person who was telling us that he was openly bullshitting the final tribal, and he still won the game. And so to me, that's pretty impressive. I don't see why more people don't necessarily do the bullshit at final tribal like he did. And he pulled it off very well. So Chris, also very underrated confessionalist, underrated entertainer. So that's why he's on my team.
Yeah, rumor has it he was almost in Survivor Blood vs. Water. So we've seen Chris play again.
Yeah, I'd say he's a good manipulator. I'd also say, again, I do appreciate winners that are more dominant, and that's why you have people like Parvati and Tony getting picked quickly. But I do think from an underdog perspective, Chris played really well. I think in terms of out of all the winners who've had their back up against the wall, Chris has this very interesting narrative. And I would say it's with One World and Vanuatu, when it was men versus women. In One World, we saw the men get decimated and the women win. And in this one, we saw the men get decimated and somehow Chris won. So he really you can One World kind of exemplifies how impressive and surprising it was that Chris was able to get to the end. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chris is officially off the board. Christian, you know who you're voting for. Mr. Wright, you're up. Who will you be picking?
So I did the math. There's only 4 women left, right? So I'm trying to pick who is Ava gonna maybe pick after this, and who are people that aren't terrible winners, and who are people that people actually like. And I'm gonna pick Jam Jam. I think he's actually
That's what it's between.
I think he's actually a really underrated winner. That's kind of why I picked him late, but I think he's a little bit better than a couple of people picked before him. I think he's probably better than Marianne. I don't think he's better than Dee and Ken. Actually, I think he's better than Kenzie too. But anyways, maybe not Rachel.
Hot, crazy.
I think Jam Jam is very underrated. He only gets discredited because he was playing alongside Carolyn and Carson. The 3 of them dominated the confessionals. They didn't even really play 100% the same game. They left each other out of votes sometimes. Carson got swapped a bit, but I think Jam Jam at the time got completely undermined. Everyone thought that Carolyn should have won, but Carolyn got 0 votes for a reason. And that's not to say Carolyn's a bad player, but I think Jam Jam gets discredited because of Carson. He got taken out at 4, and people feel like he won just because of that. And sure, that might be true, but I think Jam Jam was good socially. He was good strategically, and he had a lot of influence. So yeah, that's why I have Jam Jam. Also, surprisingly, not as bad at challenges as people would give him credit for. A lot of people underestimated him. So yeah, that's why I have Jam Jam going here.
I was between him and Marianne for my last pick. I actually do think he deserves a lot more credit than he gets. I think he had a lot more control than people give him credit for. A lot of people think Carson was one fully running everything. I don't know if I fully agree with that. I do think Jam Jam had a lot of influence. Yeah, I think he's a very good player. I believe he's probably going to be in Survivor 50, one of the biggest characters in Survivor history. So yeah, I think we'll get a second chance to see where he really stands. But yeah, I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, I was between Chris and Jam Jam, honestly, for my next pick. And I think Jam Jam's kind of hard to judge because he was such a big personality. And, we were hearing so much from him. And yet everyone was like, oh, but he wasn't nearly as strategic as Carson. So Carson should have won over Jam Jam. But to me, based off what I was watching on TV, Jam Jam deserved almost as much credit as Carson. They were playing the middle together. So, I mean, Jam Jam, and also he's just so much more socially out there and a dominant personality that it's how did they not take this guy out? Of course he's going to win at Final Tribal,
Yeah, I would say, if I'm being honest, Carson gets the credit over Carolyn because people see Carolyn as this wacky figure, right? Same thing with Jam Jam. Carson is a nerdy white dude with glasses, and people think he's like the next Bill Nye, and that's why they give him all the strategic credit. But like, and here's the thing: he deserves strategic credit, but the same as Jam Jam and Carolyn. I think those three are on equal tiers, and I feel like it was just who's going to express and explain their game better at Final Tribal, and who's actually going to get there. And Jam Jam did that.
Sure. Well, Jam Jam's off the board. Ava, I get 2 picks. Who you'll be picking?
Okay, so I've been debating this whole time if I should really go all in for having all women, because I feel like we're down to like the not great women Survivor winners, unfortunately. So I think I'm gonna pick one woman, and then I think I'm gonna stray away from the women.
Wow.
I want some chance of winning.
What about the girls and gays? Richard Hatch is available.
I don't want Richard Hatch. Actually, I'm okay. But my woman I'm gonna take, I think, is a hot take, and I'm gonna throw it once again all the way back to season 4 with Vecepia. Because I feel like she's another one of those people that like you
That is a good pick.
You never hear about her. Like once she played once, then she was never seen again. And I think she's someone like Earl, where people are like, who? Like, who's that? And it has been a really long time since I've watched Survivor Marquesas, like probably 10 years. So it's not of the utmost in the front of my mind. But I did do like some prep research in preparation for this episode. And I do think that she was a deserving winner, and she's just forgotten about because the season happened 20 years ago and we've never seen her again. So I think she's a lot of like who the hell's that kind of person, but I do definitely think that she deserved the win. And yeah, she is my 8th pick. Is that what number I'm on?
Yes. She has said recently that she would want to come back and play Survivor, so that is something.
Wow, 20 years later, that's crazy. Yeah, thoughts?
I'll advocate for Vecepia because I don't think anyone knows who the fuck she is, most of people, and I don't think she's gonna get many votes for being on your team, so I don't really care. I think she's incredibly underrated, and she should get votes, but she won't. But like she was one of the first. Like everyone likes to say, "Oh, flippers never win," right? And the thing is, Survivor has so many ways of getting to the end. I don't know why people have that idea in their head. Vecepia is like one of the first people to like flip multiple times and get to the end. On top of that, like. Not that this matters, but like, yeah, like you wanted a woman to like you want your team as win, right? You like to see women succeed. Vecepia is the second woman to ever win Survivor. Vecepia is the first black woman
to win Survivor, yeah.
To win Survivor, and it's like she's gotten forgotten simply because it was an older season, but like she is actually very underrated, and it's like, yes, I guess people are less strategic in these older seasons, so you can get away with it and dominate. But yeah, I think Vecepia is pretty underrated. And I only didn't pick her because I don't think anyone really knows much about Marquesas. So.
Yeah, all right.
I will also completely advocate for Vecepia. Personally, I would have picked her before the Tina, Jenna, Amber. Like I love Vecepia. Vecepia is one of my favorite winners ever, and it's a shame that she didn't get edited more. And part of that was because she was behind personalities like Rob and Sean. But like, not only was she like one of the first flippers to like go on and actually win the game, like. She came into the merge with one of the shittiest situations ever. And this was season 4, where the game was not fully evolved yet, where Rob and Sean were completely put on the bottom. And yet Vecepia was able to socially integrate herself so well that she was never targeted up until like the final, like whatever. She was never targeted up until she won the game. And so to me, like she plays one of the most impressive games that we see early on, but she's shafted a little bit by the edit and she's forgotten because she's never brought back. And Jeff doesn't like Marquesas. So I don't think we'll ever see her back, unfortunately. But yeah, I love Vecepia. I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, I think she's one of the most underrated players in the history of Survivor. I think she's undershadowed because you have people like Kathy Barrick O'Brien. You got, the whole Pascal doing the Rock Tryout 4, being the start of Boston Rob. Sean Rector was a huge character who deserves to play again as well. Justice for Sean Rector. So I just feel like she never really was fully able to get the praise that she deserved in the past, so it's gonna be hard for her in the future. But I think Vecepia was a very smart pick here, so I'm gonna pick. Well, so will Ava be picking a woman?
Actually, yeah, I will. I don't care. I'm doing it. I think there's 3 if I'm doing 3 remaining if I'm doing my math correctly. And that is Danny, Erica, and Natalie White. So between those three, none of whom I'm like super jazzed about in terms of like win equity here. But I'm gonna go new era and I'm gonna go with Erica. Not my favorite winner. Not my favorite season. 41 is probably my least favorite season of New Era. I think, especially coming off of like some really good seasons in the 30s, and then Winners at War, this huge season, and then they like changed the format, and everyone was like, "What is going on for the New Era?" So I think she gets tainted a lot because people are like, "What is happening with this New Era situation?" But I don't feel like she's like the best winner in the world. But I do feel like she was a good winner. Like she had a lot going for her, and yeah, I don't have a ton to say because I haven't seen 41 since it aired, but I do remember really enjoying Erica. So that's my pick.
Yeah, for anyone who watched The Traders Canada, you'll recognize Erica for being the first person murdered on season 1 of The Traders Canada.
Oh, I didn't see that. R.I.P. Queen.
Yeah, I'm not an Erica fan. I'm sorry. I know people like praise her for being this underrated great Survivor player. I don't see it. I think she's another case in which she was benefited from people on the jury like Ricard, like Heather, heavily advocating for her. I think her social game was very impressive. I still don't think the gameplay in 41 was the best.
No, it was not good.
I actually don't know who I vote for in the scenario. At the time I would have said Deshawn. I don't know if that's fully true now. I don't like 41. I thought Ricard was going to win, didn't end up winning. So yeah, Erica won. She's a Richard Hatch, the New Era. Yeah,
I think she's a good player, not a great player.
I would say I think she's also kind of underrated. Like, I don't know how I felt about. She was my preseason winner pick as well. Like a lot. I've started to get the hang of it once Survivor started. I get the edit now a little bit better. But she was like a preseason winner pick, and I'm a little underwhelmed by her. But I would say like I think the edit, although she wasn't featured a lot, she very clearly demonstrated I'm going to be underestimated. I'm going to use that to my advantage. And it's like, yeah, of course she's an underrated winner because she gets underestimated throughout her whole life. So it's like, yeah, I think that's like very intentional. And it's like you can say, oh, people advocated for her on the jury. Yeah, if I'm going to Final Tribal, I would love to have that. And like Xander could have done that. Deshawn could have done that. Like, why would you not try to get people to advocate for you on the jury before you vote them out? Or, so yeah, I think like Erica is only not taken seriously, kind of similar to Michelle. They didn't go to tribal councils a lot pre-merge. So the story and game doesn't revolve around them as much. So by the time they get to the merge, that's really when they're starting their game and they're not making as many moves as someone like Denise or Parvati, right? And it's like, it's going to be a lot harder to respect their games. But I think Erica's underrated. Not a huge, like, great player or a winner, I mean, but yeah, underrated.
Yeah, just to keep it quick, I really think Erica just got shafted by the edit. 41 has the weirdest edit ever. Her and Heather both got no airtime, but yet they were super integral to the season. And instead, all the airtime went to people like Deshawn and Xander who didn't win. So to me, that's the only reason why Erica is discredited. If maybe it's her personality, but if she was edited a lot more, I think people would see that she was a lot better of a player than what we saw.
Sure. All right. Well, right. You're up. Who can we take with your 9th pick?
There's someone here that I actually played a good game, but I also don't think anyone really gives a shit about him.
Oh, I know exactly. Yeah.
I know who you're thinking.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pick Mike Holloway.
Oh, interesting.
And here's the thing, like if
I was gonna pick Mike.
If we're drafting a tribe where we're like, oh, like I want to pick this person because they could maybe win, I don't even think Mike would win again if he ever played, if I'm being real. But I think that's why his win the first time on his first try is impressive. Like, to be honest, he didn't really play that good. And it's like he had to rely on challenges to get there. I don't think there's anything wrong with winning challenges, right? You shouldn't be chastised for being good at challenges per se, but it is not a reliable thing. And it's like, yeah, his social game was not good. His strategic game was not good. And the only reason why he won is because he had people like Will who fucking suck ass, who shouldn't have even been cast.
So
like if you're Mike and you go up against some other finalists like a Charlie or like a Deshawn, you maybe don't get as many votes to like these losing finalists. So it's like I think he loses to a lot of people in any other season if he plays the game that he played. But he also technically almost played a perfect game. He played an idol, so he technically never had any votes count against him. And I think he only missed out on like 2 jury votes, if I remember correctly. So he almost played a perfect game. So I have Mike Holloway. I don't think his win is good, but I think his win's really impressive and really entertaining. And it was unique compared to all these other winners.
Married to Meg Mallett from BB17 fame. I am with you. I think he's a better player than you give him credit for. I think he has a lot of skills to be a good Survivor player. I just don't think it really showed in Worlds Apart. It's also a very weird season. It was very I've noticed that Nicaragua was just a cursed location for Survivor. San Juan del Sur might be the exception, but Survivor Nicaragua was an awful season. Ocean Island, not a great season. Worlds Apart, I think this season, just a lot of negativity, a lot of toxicity. So it's kind of hard to fully enjoy the season. But I think Mike has a lot of potential as a player. I think he's very well versed in most aspects.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, Mike is off the board. Jacob, what's your next pick?
My favorite winner of all time fell this far. So in conjunction, he gets brought up with a lot of Mike Holloway a lot. I'm picking Ben Driebergen.
That's your favorite winner?
No, I'm just kidding. Please do not put Ben. I'm not picking Ben. Ben's my least favorite winner of all time.
I was like, what?
You guys almost expect me to pick Gabler. If I could have picked based off of my favorite, this person would have been in my top 3. I'm picking Fabio.
Wow.
As my ninth player.
One of the few Survivor winners to be arrested.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I forgot. I actually forgot he got arrested. No, but
Good.
Look. I know you hate Nicaragua. I personally think Nicaragua is hilarious. Out of all the
I think
seasons,
it's the worst season in Survivor history.
I think Nicaragua is like the weirdest season in Survivor history. Like it's like a standalone season. Like it doesn't even seem like it's a part of Survivor. It's that crazy. It's just that good.
DVD sequel.
Look, is Fabio a good player? Well, he did win, but is he a great winner? Of course he's not. But he is so unique. Name another person who won the game like Fabio. Name another person who's even like Fabio that came close to winning the game. You can't, because Fabio is hysterical. I can't believe he won the season. I love him as a character, so that's why I drafted him.
One of my favorite Survivor fun facts is he originally applied for Big Brother 12. Hayden originally applied for Survivor Nicaragua, and they ended up switching Hayden for Big Brother, Fabio for Survivor, and they both won. It's insane. Imagine being lost on this season instead of Fabio.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Listen,
Yeah, I know you must love Fabio.
Me? No, not really. I have not seen that season in a really long time, so it's not fresh in my mind about the events. But he doesn't stick out to me in a glaringly great or terrible way. I just don't remember the season that well, so I don't have much to say other than I really didn't think he was gonna get drafted because I remember him being not a good winner, and that's pretty much all I can remember. It was man.
I would have voted for Chase Rice. I'm not gonna lie.
Not Chase.
I would have voted for Fabio and Sash over Chase.
No, I would vote Chase.
I'm dead.
Michael, any immediate thoughts on Fabio?
Fabio's one of those seasons where I watched it when it aired, so I was a kid. I watched some seasons recently because my sister, episodes, so I kind of saw more recently, but my impressions on him aren't super fresh or relevant. I just know as a kid, I do think I actually noticed him. He's definitely a main character because he won, so I definitely took note of him. But yeah, I don't think he was this great player, but again, I think you could say that about a lot of people on the cast. So you could make an argument that his strategy of being goofy only would work on his season, but it's also your strategy has to be based around the season that you are on. So whether or not he has longevity is more of a question mark to me, because I'm sure he would try to do something else if he played again, given that he won, but he would have to change his strategy. And if he ever played again. So it's kind of hard to tell because he's a one-time player. But yeah, I expected him also to maybe not get drafted.
I have the next 2 picks. I'm going to be going with the person I think is the best player on the board. I just think he's a little boring. I think at the time he was a very popular winner. I think it kind of went down after a little bit. He has played twice. Aris Paskowskis, welcome Team
I
Ryan.
love Aris.
He was sort of this straight man in Panama. I think it's very, even though it's pretty top heavy, it's pretty like funny season to watch. Shane is crazy. Love that man. Terry and was kind of like the cool dad. Suri is one of my favorites of all time. It's Courtney Merritt, correct?
I know who you're talking about, but
Her jury speech is fully insane. It's wild to watch. Danielle DiLorenzo was kind of a good villain. It was just so many intense characters, and like he's kind of like the Gene Halpert being like played really smart. I think his rivalry with Terry was really cool. I think it's a pretty deserving winner. I think him and Vitas had a really interesting relationship in Blood vs. Water. He definitely had a lot of control. I think Tyson kind of realized it and kind of used it to his advantage. Great player. I think it's by far the best. I think if you're talking about game ability itself, he's pretty much a lot higher up here. So yeah, Aris, welcome to Team Ryan.
yeah, that's fair to say, especially with the people left. I really like Aris. Especially I haven't seen his original season in so long. This is why I'm doing a rewatch this year. I should have done that first before these episodes. That would probably help. But especially in Blood vs. Water, like I don't know. I just like he seems like a really nice guy, and I enjoyed watching him.
Any big Panama fans on the panel? Any big Aris Paskowskis fans?
Big time.
Well,
I love Panama.
I'm kind of neutral about him. I think Panama is like good in the sense that you have people like Terry, you have people like Shane, you have people like Suri, you have Aris, right? Like there are interesting characters. I know people don't also like Panama that much. I also know people think that the starting tribe setup is stupid, but
It really is the dumbest starting tribe set of all time.
my point. But yeah, I'm like, yeah. I don't think Aris is like a bad player. I think he is interesting and has a good dynamic with Vitas. I think out of like the duos on versus Water, Aris and Vitas are pretty interesting in comparison to other ones where, you know, I don't really care much for like Tyson's wife. I more so care about Tyson, etc. So like in terms of duos, I think Aris and Vitas were really entertaining. So
we do not respect Rachel Shade on this podcast, but yeah.
Well, I don't dislike her. I'm not like, she was such good TV, you know? I'm like,
yeah.
All right. So we're in the final round of the draft. I can't believe I'm drafting this person. I never thought I would. I'm having a lot of Trailblazers on my team. I got to go with the OG. Richard Hatch. Come on. Look, he is the reason why Survivor is still a show today. He really is. I just think he was the first person to get the game. I think also it's kind of hard to assess him because like he's playing with people who never like did not understand really the show. The alphabet strategy was literally something he was in Borneo, so it's completely different from modern day. He was also on another reality show pretty recently, and he did not do the best on it. He was a second boot. But I think he is a trailblazer. I think he is a big reason for why Survivor is shown as today. While people played the game, I think he is probably, if you ask people on the street in the Survivor player, he might be one of the 2 or 3 names people will probably hear the most. I think for legacy alone, I have to draft Richard Hatch.
If only he paid taxes on his $1 million, then maybe he'd gotten in trouble for that situation.
My most recent impression on him is he uploaded a 20-minute video of him talking about Survivor 47. And I watched that. That was the first time I've heard from Richard in a long time. So
Really? That's funny.
What do you think about his video?
It was a good video. He had some good analysis. He loved 47. He said it was like one of his favorite seasons of all time.
Take a chill pill, Richard.
And Richard is the OG. I feel like he absolutely deserved to be drafted somewhere for being the first winner ever and coming up with the basic alliance that we see today. So, yeah, there's a lot to say about Richard. Of course, it's hard to judge him very well, but, you know, he should be drafted for the simple fact that he was the first.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about him, but, like, if I had my last pick and he was still on the board, I would have made sure that he got drafted because I think he deserves to be drafted. But it is hard to assess his game because, yeah, he built the foundation of Survivor, kind of. But then it's also like, if we're ranking like winners and how good people are, it's like, yeah, you built the foundation, but like, I don't know if he would really succeed in the foundation that he's built. And, you know, and like, so I don't know. And like his win is interesting. Honestly, in real life, it seems like a lot of people don't even like him. So I don't even really understand how he won in the first place. My sister's boyfriend's uncle like met Richard Hatch, and he like apparently was really creepy and like
Oh,
kept
God.
flirting with him. And then even like in a Instagram comment, someone said how Richard Hatch was like one of the most insufferable people they've ever met, and someone met him in Maine. So like it seems like he's terrible socially, but here's the thing. I feel like if you're bad socially and you win at Final Tribal, that's not good, but that's really impressive. So yeah, I don't know, but he deserved to be drafted at least.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my team is officially done. I got Boston Rob Mariano, Kim Spradlin, Neil Kwan, John Cochran, Sophie Clark, Rachel Lamont, Adam Klein, Marianne Elkich, Aris Piskowskis, and Richard Hatch. The OG and newbie tribe. It's not who I would have pictured, but I'm not going to complain. I think it's a pretty good list. I think there's a lot of fan favorites on here, so yeah, pretty confident. But Jacob, next pick. Who will you be drafting with your last pick?
I think that there's especially, you guys can already write it in. I think there's especially two people on the board who I think played really good games of Survivor. One of them is Brian. Brian, nobody's really going to know very well, and he also killed a dog. I don't want Brian on my team.
That's not his only issue.
So I really don't want Brian. The other one is somebody who is known as like the most boring winner ever, who is Tommy. I think Tommy did play an extremely good game on an extremely controversial season. I don't want
Tommy was still available. Whoops.
You would have picked him?
Honestly, I probably would have picked him over Chris. I'm not gonna lie.
Nobody else left, I think, is going to get me any votes. So of course I'm going to pick my favorite. I'm going to pick Mike Gabler. Give me Gabler as my last member of the roster. Not just because I have his phone number, but I was rooting for him on 43 if Jesse didn't win. So give me Gabler.
Yeah. He seems like he's a nice dude. I'm just not a big fan of him in terms of his game.
Yeah, I agree. Like game wise, he just didn't really impress me that much, but I do like him as a person.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I think Gabler's one of like the worst winners, which is why he's being drafted so late. However, I think he 100% deserved to win. I don't think Cassidy had that much social influence over people. If she had a better social game, like here's the thing, Gabler sucks strategically, right? So if Cassidy's game is so much better strategically, why did she win? And it's like, okay, well, she was a better social player. If she was better socially, she would have actually dictated votes, made big moves, and actually would have gone to jury votes because they like her. Gabler's the one that did that. Gabler was one vote away from playing a perfect game. Now, I think playing a perfect game could be a little bit overrated because it's like, yes, that's really hard to do, but I also think it's like, how did you play a perfect game, if that makes sense? Like JT's perfect game isn't the same as Gabler's near perfect game, in my opinion. There's a huge drop in quality, but like, I don't think Gabler's bad. I knew he'd get drafted because of Jacob, but if he wasn't here, I don't think he would get drafted.
I am not gonna lie. I would defend Cassie right now, but I'm a little exhausted.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, so Jacob's team is officially concluded. He has Sandra Diaz-Twine, Jeremy Collins, Tyson Apostle, JT Thomas, Todd Herzog, Kenzie Petty, Earl Cole, Chris Doherty, Fabio Barreza, and Mike Gabler.
That's only one woman. Wow.
No, it's two.
Two.
Wait, who was the other one?
Kenzie and Sandra.
Sandra Kenzie.
I started listening on the second name, and then I just heard Kenzie, and I was like, damn.
Jacob, how are you feeling about your team?
I think my team is perfect. I think we've got some of the best players in Survivor history, some of the most legendary players in Survivor history, and then we end off with two absolute goofy favorites of Fabio and Gabler, two lovable guys. How can you not love everything about my team? Even though, yeah, maybe there's a lack of women because all the great women were stolen from me. All right, I still managed to get the queen of Survivor, Sandra, on my team, and maybe the queen of the new era, Kenzie. So, boom, vote for Jacob Yusman.
Before we move on, I'm just kind of curious. If this tribe was a tribe and went to tribal council, who was the first boot, Fabio or Gabler?
Neither. Are you kidding? Wow. Why would people target Fabio over Sandra?
I think Fabio would be the first boot by a landslide.
Me too.
You think Fabio?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why would people target Fabio over Sandra?
I would have no idea what he's doing with that.
Yeah, because he's just like a loose cannon. At least Sandra's like
I
has a
mean,
head on her shoulder.
I'll
She's
say this.
poorly, but
In defense of Fabio, he played on the season which was old versus young, and our impressions of Fabio is before his mind even fully developed. Like he literally has a wife and kids now, and the way he's viewed life and the life experiences he's gone through is probably going to change the way he plays the game if he ever plays again.
My memories of Fabio mainly are him jumping after winning the game, him being pissed off that what's his name?
Pissing, but yeah, sorry.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
Wait.
I'm just saying he also pissed enough.
I mean, yeah. Who's the guy who asked Sash who was gay?
That's Shannon.
Oh, yeah.
Shannon. Him getting pissed off with Shannon. Then him being like, ooh, ooh, Fabio something.
You're saying that's all you remember from Fabio?
Honestly, pretty.
yeah,
much.
pretty much.
Yeah, well,
You don't remember him believing that Marty was a grandmaster in chess?
Not really.
What about him winning the final 3 immunity challenges to win the game?
Not really.
What?
I remember Jack and Jill, but I don't remember.
Same thing as Mike Holloway, but he had a better social game than Mike Holloway. Boom.
Okay, let's move on.
Anyway, Fabio, if you're watching this, love to have you in the podcast. Yeah, Michael Wright, you're up. Who are you
So,
drafting with your last
To
pick?
be honest, I think the 3 best players remaining are Tommy, Ben, and Brian. I think if I draft Ben, I'll actually lose people wanting to vote for me, even though I think he deserves it.
I don't think Ben's that bad.
I think I don't like Brian also is like what he's like sexist and racist and that he killed the dog and then he only won because he went up against an old racist dude as well. So it's like
rest in peace.
and I
Quinn.
think like I don't know. So yeah, I'm like Brian actually had immense control and I think out of the remaining people he had a lot of control. And I want to pick Bob because he was the first season I've ever seen, but I'm gonna pick Tommy. I know that his season is like shrouded in controversy, but like Tommy isn't a piece of shit and he's a good player. I think he was also a lot of these people I've picked were people that I thought were gonna win beforehand. Tommy's also another person. Actually, that's not true. I thought Lauren was gonna win, so never mind. But Tommy was like a second choice. But Tommy was a pretty obvious winner, and I think yes, that's due to the edit, but I also think that shows how much control him and Lauren had throughout the game. He's also like, if people look at me and like, why the fuck is he drafting Tommy? I don't know who the fuck else you want me to pick. I also picked Tommy because I'm like, if Ava wants to pick a woman, she could pick Natalie White, but everyone else sucks ass. It's like it's an old dude and an old white dude and Bob. You got Danny, who's also kind of lame. You got Brian, who again is racist. Ben, who's like kind of an asshole on Winners at War. So I'm gonna pick Tommy because he seems like a normal human, which I think Ava likes. So just to take down the champ and increase my shot at winning, I'm picking Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy, I think is just boring. I think he's actually a very good player. I think he's arguably a top 15, top 20 player of all time. Just boring. Yeah.
Yeah, and his season was just bad, so it's not his fault. It wasn't really his fault.
For Lauren Ashley Beck, would love to see her return.
Yeah, I love Lauren.
But yeah, in conclusion, I'm pretty happy with my team. I think my blatant pandering to people voting, like I have like women, I have South Asians, I have black people, I have gay people, I have Hispanic people, I have liberals, I have conservatives, I have everything.
Let's review Michael Wright's team. He had Tony Vacco, Sarah Lucina, Natalie Anderson, Wendell Holland, Tom Westman, Ethan Zahn, Nick Wilson, Jam Arocho, whatever.
Yeah,
What's his last name? Mike Holloway, Tommy Sheehan.
Let's not get it twisted. Also, 2 women. 2 women.
Okay, to be fair, I picked a woman with my second pick and my third pick, and then they all kept getting taken. So like there wasn't really much I could do. I didn't think the new era people were getting picked that quickly. So yeah, I would have picked
4 women, so I think I'm not doing too bad. Yeah. Eva, last pick in the draft.
Well,
Let's let the scene. Here are the people we have left: Chris Underwood, Bob Curley, Brian Heidick, Ben Driebergen, Natalie White, and Danny Boatwright. I'm assuming we're drafting either Natalie White or Danny Boatwright.
yes, I would just like to say Bob was robbed. I love Bob. So I do feel as though he was robbed. The other ones not so much. But I do think that Bob was robbed. So RIP. Yeah, so for me, the choices between Danny Boatwright and Natalie White, neither of whom I'm like super thrilled about, to be honest. But I will go with Natalie White, and
What? That's
I respect.
mostly because if Russell Hands has 0 haters, I am dead. I am not a fan of him, and she beat him, and therefore bonus points in my book. I also feel like she really just gets shit on a lot as a player. And
because she sucks at Survivor.
okay, do I think she's great at Survivor? No, but you can't be awful at Survivor and win. You have to have some sort of basic understanding of something to win the game. And whether that was she got lucky,
Yeah,
that
doing what she was told by a
one
old bald
hated on
man.
the jury. She still ended up at the end with Russell. Whether that was her doing or his, she beat him.
Yeah, I will say like she's like a penultimate pick. So it's like like you kind of have to pick someone that's
Yeah.
not considered great. I will say, not that voting record is everything, but Natalie White went to 14 tribal councils and voted perfectly at 100% of them. Granted, it was mainly because of Russell, but like, isn't that kind of good to align yourself with Russell and make sure you have complete control of the game? And it's like, if you look at her confessional, she's like, I'm going to work with Russell because I'm riding his coattails, but people don't like him. And it's like, if anybody was playing the game with Russell, I think they would go through that thought process like, I'm playing the exact same game as this guy, which is pretty good, and everyone fucking hates him. So it's like, I don't think it's a horrible strategy. I don't think she's a good winner, but like, yeah, she's not terrible at Survivor. It's an effective strategy.
Yeah.
There's an argument to be made that Natalie White played a better game than Sandra in Heroes vs. Villains. And I'm saying that as somebody who picked Sandra first. And this, obviously, I don't really believe it. But, like, there's an argument to be made that Natalie White knew what she was doing, aligned herself with Russell, beat him in the end. Whereas Sandra tried to vote out Russell and it didn't work. So Natalie White knew. I feel like Natalie White knew what she was doing. Did she know for sure that she was going to win and control votes? No. But she did think to herself that she had a good shot of beating Russell at the end, and that's what she did.
Yeah.
Justice for Danny Boatwright here, I think Winners of War kind of tarnishes her reputation.
I agree.
I think she's actually a pretty underrated player. She was someone who openly did not really tell the confessionals and like producers what she was fully doing. She was scared that was going to affect the game. That's impressive strategy. I'm sorry, being that wary of production while playing and have Jeff call you one of his favorite winners. I believe she was actually Jeff's winner pick for Winners of War. It's a lot. I think she's very underrated.
But I did
I think Danny would fly under the radar. She hasn't been drafted thus far, so it's like I don't think that's like, and she's won. She has experience, so I don't think that's too bad of a take, really.
I think Danny should have been drafted over Natalie White. Yeah. Then we got Chris Underwood, the only winner to get voted out. So I don't blame us.
I also the Edge of Extinction twist is literally my favorite or my least favorite twist of all time. So
Chris, yeah.
I wasn't gonna pick. He was a product of that. Not that that's his fault that he was on that season, but it's a no.
Yeah, I'd say Chris is one of the winners that I think is a bad player because the only reason why he came back into the game and played good is because he got a bunch of intel from the jury. That being said, I think what he did during the game is impressive, and I think if any of us were in his shoes, if we got voted out third, got back in at like final 7 or 6 or whatever, I don't think any of us would even think we have a shot at winning. So he kind of beat the odds. That doesn't mean he's a good winner, but like I think that is.
Yeah. Then we got Ben Driebergen, who I'm not the biggest fan of him. I do think he's a better player than people give him credit for. First and fifth is pretty impressive. I think numbers don't lie.
I apologize. You know, I'm the biggest hater of Ben. It's not because I think he's this terrible player. I think he is a fine player at Survivor, underrated for sure. But I just don't like him, and I don't like the fact that he beat Devin with this fire-making twist. That's the reason why I don't like Ben.
You and me both.
Yeah, I think Ben was fun and entertaining to watch. He had a solid end game. Yes, I know people don't like the twist, but I only didn't pick him because I think I would literally have people want to vote for me. That's why I didn't pick him. So.
For sure. Then we got Bob Crowley from Survivor Gabon.
Robbed.
Yeah.
I love Bob. Not like he again, it's not like he's the greatest Survivor player of all time, but like I just like him.
I
Ava,
would-
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'd say I do think that him being the oldest to win is pretty impressive. And me watching Survivor for the first time and the old man winning was like mind blowing to me. I'm like, what the fuck? And then so I do like have like a soft spot for Bob, but like as I've gotten older, I've realized he's not that great. I think he has one of the worst voting records of a winner like ever, which is like, yeah, there's a reason why this dude's not getting drafted, especially when he's playing on Gabon, which has one of the worst strategic casts ever. It's like, how are you not dominating that season? So, yeah.
And we also got Ryan Heidick from Survivor Thailand, who we've talked about a few times during this podcast.
Not much more to be said. Racist.
Speaks for itself.
He's racist, sexist, and homophobic.
Really working out for us. Sorry.
Do we want to make I think we should make a fifth pool. The 5 people we did not draft. See how many votes that gets. If they believe that team of 5 is better than our team of 10.
Nobody is ever gonna vote for that.
People might vote for them because it's funny.
I mean, you should make people pick their most robbed out of that 5. I think that's a better alternative.
I'm with either, but yeah. That concludes our draft. We'll see who wins, gets prize in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah.